Inside a grand hall, Sasha joyfully embraces Heiss, exclaiming that she received the Sword Master blessing. Heiss congratulates her warmly. She tells him it's his turn now, and he confidently agrees, certain he'll also get an amazing blessing so they can finally go on adventures together. Their shared dream brings a memory to the surface. As younger children, they stand before the graves of their parents. Sasha remarks that with their blessings, they will be one step closer to achieving their dream, and Heiss quietly agrees. He continues, his voice thick with emotion and tears welling in his eyes, vowing that no one else will have to go through what they did. Sasha adds that they will form the best and strongest team to help as many people as possible. The memory fades, returning to the baptism ceremony. It is a known truth that in this world, humans are granted powers from God, called blessings, by the time they turn 12. Guildmaster Geis-san turns to Heiss, announcing that his turn has come. To understand and use a blessing, one must consult the Tome of Blessings. As the large book is presented, Heiss looks down at it, his mind fixed on the promise he and Sasha made for their future. As he places his hands upon the tome, it glows brightly and flips open on its own accord. He realizes this is the first step. The pages reveal his blessing, Weapon Master. He stares at the unfamiliar script, confused. He turns to the Guildmaster, asking what this blessing is. Geis-san peers at the tome, his expression puzzled by the strange lettering, which seems to read Yupon Master. The Guildmaster admits that he doesn't know what the blessing is. Heiss asks what Yupon even means. Sasha overhears, her face falling in shock as she realizes that if even the Guildmaster is clueless, it means Heiss cannot use his power. 2 years pass. Now known as Sacred Heiss, he pants and struggles under the immense weight of a backpack, trudging along a path far behind his adventuring party. Someone calls out his name. The speaker is Reynold, the Sacred Vice Leader. He looks back at the exhausted Heiss with a slight smile, asking if he's hanging in there and noting that they're almost at their destination. Sasha, though visibly tired, insists she can keep going. Beside her, Heiss looks down at the ground, his shoulders slumped under the weight of his massive pack, and quietly acknowledges her words. Seeing their condition, Reynold sighs and calls a halt. He announces that they will take a break where they are and set out again in 30 minutes. Heiss looks up, surprised by the decision. He immediately turns his attention to Sasha, his voice filled with concern. He warns her that if she were to collapse, there would be no one to cover for her, questioning her resolve to push onward. His outburst draws reactions from the other party members. Robin, the archer, cheerfully offers to help carry some of the gear. Piazzala, however, scoffs at Heiss, derisively pointing out that he's talking big for someone who can't even use his blessing. Sasha cuts through the chatter, her gaze fixed on Heiss. She tells him that he can't slow them down, explaining that their current task is a crucial mission that will determine if Team Sacred can rank up. As Heiss turns away, dejected, Robin approaches him with a worried expression, telling him to get some rest. He forces a smile, thanking her and insisting he can handle the load. But she reminds him that as the party's archer, she can't be burdened either, which only makes the situation more difficult. The conversation fades as Heiss reflects on the 2 years that have passed since he received his blessing. He remembers forming the team with Sasha and how it grew over time. His thoughts are interrupted by Reynold's voice, who remarks to the others that while Heiss is a nice person, he still can't use his abilities. The party status is clear. Sacred is currently a B-ranked team, or clan. Individually, however, Sasha has already achieved the prestigious A rank. Following this assessment, Reynold walks over to Heiss, patting him on the head and telling him not to let the comments get to him and to rest up. Heiss offers a quiet thanks, but as Reynold walks away, his hand clenches into a fist. He seethes internally, frustrated at being just someone who carries luggage, unable to even use his own power. As the party resumes their trek, Sasha glances back and asks Reynold how Heiss is holding up. The vice leader looks over his shoulder at Heiss trudging behind them and reports that he looks pretty exhausted. Beside her, Reynold looked toward their destination with grim determination, expressing his belief that they would manage to succeed. Sasha agreed, but her gaze was cold. She confirmed that a decision had been made, a statement that caused Reynold to flinch. With the matter settled, she turned to the rest of the party gathered before the dark maw of a cave. She announced their simple plan. They had arrived at the den of an A-rank queen cobra, and their task was to subjugate it. She would go in first, with Tycoon and Robin providing support. Reynold would guard the rear, and Piazzala would stay back as their healer. Heiss' hand clenched into a fist as he processed the orders. He started to protest, asking what he was supposed to do, but Sasha cut him off, stating firmly that he would wait there. The plan would proceed without him. As Tycoon prepared, the principles of their world's power system became clear. Certain blessings grant the ability to call upon magical energy, and possessing this energy is what allows a person to use magic. Sasha gave the command to advance. Tycoon's blessing, Sage, allows him to use all forms of magic except for healing, making his specialty support magic. The party moved out, leaving Heiss behind. Upon entering the cavern, the party was immediately confronted by their quarry. A colossal queen cobra, its hood flared, rose up and hissed, ready for battle. The memory of Sasha's dismissal was fresh, her hand shoving his shoulder as she told him, no hard feelings. From the entrance, Heiss watched her engage the beast, thinking that her power was always an incredible sight. Her sword master blessing grants her exceptional swordsmanship, making her stronger as long as she holds a sword. With her weapon drawn, Sasha faced the cobra and declared that it would have to die there. She unleashed her power, leaping forward with a glowing blade. Her blessing allows her to manifest magical power at will, strengthening her sword and shield. It is one of the 16 currently known master blessings. As she attacked, Robin and Tycoon watched from a safe distance, ready to provide support. In the heat of battle, Reynolds raises his arms to defend, but the golem-like monster's strike is overwhelming. His shield shatters into pieces. From the sidelines, Piazzala stifles a laugh, sarcastically remarking on the failure of their shield master to keep the enemy from getting so close. The vice leader whirls around, his face contorted with rage. He directs his fury not at the monster, but at a startled Heiss. Reynolds screams his name, blaming him for the predicament before declaring his intent to take drastic action. Before he can react to the outburst, a shadowy, serpentine creature, the Black Ancient Dragon, lunges at him from behind. Caught completely unaware, Heiss can only let out a gasp of confusion as the monster closes in. The dark creature's attack is intercepted with a heavy thud as Sasha slams her sword down, saving Heiss at the last possible moment. From the ground, the boy looks up at her, stammering an apology and his thanks, trying to explain that he had also wanted to help. She cuts him off with a furious expression, grabbing him by his clothes. Sasha roars at him to stop causing trouble and stay still. As Heiss freezes in shock, another party member makes a grim discovery nearby, calling out that they found human bones and suggesting they be brought back to the guild. In the aftermath of their battle, the party stands over the remains of the Queen Cobra. Robin asks if they should collect the other materials, but Sasha dismisses the idea, stating that they only need the monster's core as proof of subjugation. Nearby, Heiss looks on with a puzzled expression. While gathering the spoils, he discovers a thick, ornate book. As he wonders what it could be, Sasha shoves him, chiding him for dawdling and urging him to hurry up with the packing. Later, in the quiet of a room, he examines his find. The book's pages reveal an image of an unfamiliar object labeled Desert Eagle, alongside characters he cannot read. He pauses, gazing out a window, as he contemplates the mystery. This strange feeling of the unknown reminds him of the moment he first received his blessing, Weapon Master. Rejoining his party, Heiss attempts to get their attention, wanting to discuss the book. He sits down, deciding to try and decipher it slowly, hoping it might be the catalyst he needs to finally use his blessing. His thoughts are shattered by Sasha's cold, direct statement. "You should leave the team." The words strike him with the force of a physical blow, leaving him utterly shocked. He stares at her in disbelief, his voice trembling as he asks if she has forgotten their promise. Reynolds stands beside her, his expression unreadable. Sasha looks away, confirming that she hasn't forgotten. She explains that their party, Sacred, is about to be promoted to A rank, and his continued presence will only drag the rest of the team down. She punctuates her statement by placing a heavy pouch on the table with a thud, declaring that she plans to aim for the very best team. Following her lead, Reynolds offers a curt apology. He tells Heiss to take the money for his return journey home, his glare leaving no room for argument. Heiss can only stare back, stunned into silence. He is thrown back into a memory of Reynolds' past promise, a hand patting his shoulder as the vice leader vowed they would do their best to make their party's name so famous it would reach Heiss' distant hometown. The warmth of that memory vanishes as Heiss, his voice small, asks if there is truly no place for him in the team. Reynolds' answer is cold and direct. Yeah, there isn't. As the finality of the words sinks in, Heiss glances back at Sasha and Piazzala, who watch in silence. He turns his attention back to Reynolds, remarking with bitterness that the vice leader seems eager to see him go. Suddenly, Robin bursts into the room, shouting that she is against making Heiss leave. She argues that his master blessing holds future potential. Reynolds clenches his fist, retorting that their upcoming battles will be too tough to wait for some unknown day when Heiss might become useful. His patience worn thin, Reynolds takes a heavy step forward, declaring that Heiss is no longer needed in their party, Sacred. A shocked Robin protests that this coldness is unlike him. He ignores her completely, leaning in close to Heiss to deliver the final, formal blow. He is officially kicking him out. With the deed done, Reynolds offers a small pouch of money as a parting gift. Heiss turns his back, refusing the gesture. Reynolds acknowledges his refusal, but picks up the pouch anyway, preparing to press the issue. His composure finally shatters. Heiss spins and slaps the pouch from Reynolds' hand, sending coins scattering across the floor as he screams that he doesn't need it. His anger spent, he looks down, defeated, and quietly agrees to leave. As he turns away, his hand clenches into a tight, trembling fist. Though he is leaving, an internal vow is made. He will never give up. That silent promise erupts into a furious, determined expression. He declares that he will not become an adventurer like Sasha, who would betray a comrade. His final, cutting words, accusing them of throwing away the weak to climb higher, echo in Sasha's mind. Her eyes are wide, reflecting the shock and sting of his accusation. As the accusation hangs in the air, she looks down, her expression somber. Beside her, Reynolds watches as Heiss turns his back on them, slamming the door shut with a final defiant shout, vowing that he will never give up. In the silence that follows, Reynolds reassures a distraught Robin, then turns to Sasha, asking if she is certain about this course of action. Sasha turns away, apologizing for making him take such a measure. With a resolute expression, Reynolds accepts the burden, confessing that he doesn't want Heist to die and that this is for the best, even if it earns him Heist's hatred. Later that night, under a crescent moon, Heist looks out over the city rooftops. Alone, he quietly accepts his new reality. 2 months pass. He winces, clutching a freshly bandaged arm, a painful reminder of the constant struggle on his solitary path. Despite the hardships, he carries on. Inside a bustling guild hall, he reflects on his progress, noting to himself that he managed to defeat 20 goblins today. It's his best result yet, but he knows he must grow even stronger. As he stands with a basket of herbs, he draws the attention of other adventurers. His presence sparks whispers among the crowd. Onlookers identify him as the adventurer who was kicked out of the renowned party, Sacred. They mock his current state, pointing out that he's now working as a solo herb gatherer. He overhears their scornful gossip, labeling him the shame of Team Sacred. The mention of Sasha and his former party members causes his expression to harden. Amidst the murmurs, a pair of ornate, heeled boots steps forward, stopping directly in front of his own worn-out footwear. He looks up, startled, to find Sasha confronting him, her sword held out before her. Behind her stand the other members of Sacred, Reynolds, Robin, and Piazzala. Sasha's eyes are wide with an unreadable emotion as she breathes his name. He flinches as Sasha's voice cuts through his thoughts, a memory surfacing from before their separation. She had told him to listen, pointing him south. She had explained that in the wetlands within the desert nation of Dazara, a special type of flower blossomed. White clover flowers, the kind used in healing potions. He had processed her words, repeating the details to himself while the rest of his party stood by. With a simple acknowledgement, he had turned to leave. The memory fades, and the present reality crashes back in. Reynolds smirks as Heist gasps, the truth dawning on him. They weren't looking for him, but for the flowers. He also realizes that such flowers are expensive and could sell for a great deal. His mind flashes to an image of Sasha smiling, a memory of a time when he might have hoped her words meant something more personal. But that hope now seems misplaced. He looks down, clutching the information she gave him. The location is a long journey, but he resolves to set out the next day. True to his word, the following day finds him arriving at the vast, open wetlands. Before him stretches an unbelievable sight, a field blanketed entirely in white clover flowers. He can only stare, utterly amazed. He quickly sets to work, gathering the flowers into a large basket. He reflects that, even though they are no longer a party, this is something he can still do. With care, he snips another stem. He pauses, a hopeful smile on his face. He decides he should at least thank them for the information. Perhaps, he muses, their shared dream might still be achievable someday. He continued his work in the field of white flowers, his basket nearly full. Suddenly, a vast shadow fell over him, eclipsing the sun. He glanced up from his task, confused by the abrupt darkness. The source of the shadow was a horrifying revelation. A colossal, armored dragon-like beast descended from the sky, its jagged, dark body blotting out the light. Its powerful limbs ended in sharp claws, and its long tail whipped through the air as it fixed its gaze downward. Heist's eye widened in pure terror at the sight. As the monster loomed, another figure watched from a nearby cliff. Sasha, the sacred leader, looked down upon the scene, her gaze fixed on the small figure of Heist standing frozen amidst the flowers. An uncertain sound escaped her lips as she took in the situation. The armored dragon lets out a deafening roar, its massive jaws snapping shut just above Heist. Terrified, he can only let out a choked cry as he scrambles backward on the ground, realizing he must escape. The beast's attack is relentless. A claw or tail whips past him with a sickening sound, narrowly missing as he recoils in sheer terror, a scream tearing from his throat. The force of a near miss sends him flying backward. He crashes hard against a rock formation, the impact knocking the wind out of him as he gasps in pain. He slumps to the ground, his body aching. Before him lies a pool of water, and a dreadful realization dawns. This must be the dragon's bathing grounds. He questions why Sasha would have sent him to such a place, a memory surfacing of voices calling him the shame of Team Sacred, someone Sasha and the others no longer wanted. The painful truth settles in his mind as he looks up, blood trickling from his mouth. He sees an image of Sasha, her face cold and distant, and wonders aloud if he was truly nothing more than an obstacle to her. In the background, the dragon stomps closer. He turns his head, his eyes wide with fear as the monstrous dragon looms over him, its shadow casting him in darkness. A single thought screams through his mind. He does not want to die. This desperate plea echoes in his thoughts, a mantra against the encroaching doom. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. As his terror reaches its peak, a strange light emanates from his hand, a sudden flash in the darkness. In response to his will, a complex metal object materializes in his grasp, an M79 grenade launcher. A strange sensation flows through him. Though he has never seen such a weapon before, An innate knowledge floods his mind. He knows exactly how to use it. As the armored dragon lets out another ferocious roar and charges forward, he understands his next move with perfect clarity. He just needs to pull the trigger, and it will launch an explosive. With newfound resolve hardening his features, he raises the weapon, taking aim at the advancing beast. The fear is replaced by cold certainty. He can kill it. He pulls the trigger. With a distinct click and a forceful thump, the grenade launcher fires. The projectile hurtles directly into the armored dragon's gaping mouth. The projectile detonates in a cataclysmic explosion. The dragon's head is obliterated, sending fragments of its armored hide flying as a shockwave rips through the air. As the dust settles, he looks down at a glowing book that has manifested before him. It identifies the weapon as an M79 grenade launcher, a tool not of this world. He realizes this is his new blessing, Weapon Master. His initial shock gives way to a burst of crazed, triumphant laughter. The sound echoes, raw and unhinged, before it chokes into sobs as the weight of his survival and betrayal crashes down upon him. The memory of the betrayal surfaces, sharp and painful. He thinks of Sasha, the image of her loyalty now shattered. Clutching his face, his expression twists into one of pure anguish and fury. He makes a silent, burning vow. He will not forget this. Elsewhere at the Guildmaster Geist sits at his desk. Reynold and Piazzolla stand before him with the rest of their party, reporting their successful promotion to A rank. Geist congratulates them, thanking them for their report. After the formal report, Piazzolla quietly asks Sasha how things are going with Heiss. Sasha, stirring her drink, replies that there have been some bad rumors circulating about him lately, prompting Piazzolla to express her concern. Piazzolla continues, explaining the nature of the rumors. People are mocking Heiss for his persistence as an adventurer, and worse, there are whispers that his own party members were trying to undermine him. Sasha feigns a shocked reaction. Turning to Guildmaster Geist, Sasha dismisses the whispers as just a rumor, of course. She asks rhetorically if he could really believe they would do something like that to Heiss. The Guildmaster listens intently, sipping his drink without a word. He grins, assuring Sasha that he knows her party isn't the kind of group to abandon a comrade. However, he cautions her that as their fame grows, they are bound to attract jealousy from former members like Heiss. Sasha feigns a thoughtful expression, changing the subject. She mentions that Heiss was saving money to pursue a childhood dream, and that she had told him about a good place to gather some herbs. Taking a sip from his cup, the Guildmaster casually asks where this supposed location might be. Sasha watches him, her expression unreadable. She reveals the location is at the small wetlands. The Guildmaster slams his cup down with a thud, his eyes wide with shock as he demands to know if she is serious. His alarm is justified. He explains that the location is the bathing ground of the Black Ancient Dragon, an SS+ rank monster. As the gravity of the situation sinks in, a guild staff member bursts in, shouting that there is an emergency. Understanding immediately, the Guildmaster tells the staffer he'll be right there. He turns and urgently commands Sasha and her companions to come downstairs with him at once. Descending to the main hall, they are met with a shocking spectacle. Amidst the chattering crowd stands Heiss, battered but alive, holding the massive, severed head of a dragon. The Guildmaster and Sasha stare in disbelief. He glares up at his former leader from the floor below. With cold fury, Heiss remarks that it's too bad her plan failed and that he survived, asking if she truly hated him that much. Sasha stammers, asking what he is talking about, but Heiss roars for her to stop playing dumb. He announces that he killed the dragon, dropping its head to the floor with a heavy thud. He confesses his momentary happiness, thinking she had been cheering for him. His face contorts with rage and betrayal. He declares to the entire guild hall that he is done trusting people. He stood firm in his declaration, his mind set. He would rely only on his own strength. He was going to become the strongest. As this resolve solidified within him, the massive dragon head he had been holding slipped from his grasp and crashed onto the guild hall floor. The impact caused Sasha to wobble, her voice trembling as she pointed at him. Heiss, caught off guard by her reaction, could only stammer her name in return. In the next instant, she lunged forward, grabbing him by the collar, her face a mask of disbelief and fury as she screamed his name. 2 years later, inside a modest inn, Heiss informs the keeper that he will be staying for another month, placing coins on the worn wooden counter. The innkeeper glances at him, noting that as an S-rank adventurer, he could afford much better accommodations than this dump. Heiss replies simply that this place comes with breakfast included. He reflects that this is precisely the point. No one would ever expect to find an S-rank adventurer here. It is revealed that Heiss now holds the title Harbinger of Darkness. His thoughts drift to a newspaper article announcing that Brynhild the Silver Valkyrie, Sasha, has also reached S rank, and that her clan is now being flooded with applications. Sasha herself appears pensive. Later, the door to his room closes with a solid thud. Inside, Heiss' expression is sharp and determined. His solitude is interrupted by a summons to the Adventurers Guild. There, he sits before Guildmaster Eikembody Geist, an S-rank adventurer renowned as the strongest in unarmed combat. Geist glares at him, demanding to know what he wants. Heiss calmly mentions that he heard Geist taught him well, reminding him that he single-handedly took down a mithril ogre, an S+ rank monster. In a brief flashback, a flustered Geist denies ever teaching him to do such a thing. This feat is significant within the established monster ranking system, which grades creatures from F, the lowest, to SSS, the highest. However, it is known that no SSS rank monster has ever been documented, making SS rank the highest encountered in reality. As evidence of his recent hunts, Heist presents a massive pile of monster carcasses. Geist observes that he could salvage better materials if his kills were cleaner, but Heist retorts that with his blessing, such a thing is impossible. Changing the subject, Geist slides a wax-sealed envelope across the table. He announces that it is an invitation to the S-rank adventurer ceremony. Heist looks baffled, questioning the invitation since he believed they already had one. He holds the invitation, its royal seal prominent, and questions why the royal family would be involved in a ceremony for S-rank adventurers. Guildmaster Geist clarifies that the previous event was merely the guild's own ceremony. The information sinks in, and Heist expresses his surprise, realizing the first king must have been an adventurer. Geist confirms this, adding that this king was not only an adventurer, but also the one who created the very idea of S-rank, becoming the first in history to hold the title. The Guildmaster continues, explaining that the royal family is responsible for classifying S-rank adventurers, as they are seen as successors to the first king's path. He reveals that at the ceremony, Heist will be given an official S-rank request, and only upon accepting it will he be formally recognized. Internally, Heist scoffs at the notion, considering it trivial since he has already completed missions far exceeding that rank. As if dropping a final, critical detail, Geist casually mentions that Sasha will also be in attendance. The name hits Heist with physical force, his eye widening in shock as an image of his former leader looms in his mind. Seeing his reaction, the guild master gently probes, asking if he still cannot find it in himself to forgive her. Heist's hand tightens into a fist, the leather of his glove creaking as he grits out that forgiveness is impossible. Geist attempts to reframe the past, insisting, as he has countless times before, that Sasha's actions were born of care, a desire to protect Heist from harm. But the words are drowned out by a bitter memory of Sasha screaming at him to stop getting in the way, accusing him of dragging the team down. He stares into his cup, his voice low. He questions whether someone who truly cared would say such cruel things. Even if Geist's interpretation were true, he reasons, it doesn't change the unassailable fact that she cast him out. As Geist begins to offer a counterpoint, Heist cuts him off, his mind replaying more of Sasha's words. He remembers her justification for abandoning the weak, and her conviction that the party would eventually become the strongest team without him. His resolve hardens. Looking directly at the guildmaster, he declares that he will continue on his own path to become the strongest. His gaze intensifies, filled with a deep-seated distrust. He proclaims that he doesn't need anyone, least of all the hollow concept of comrades. He announces his departure, slamming the door behind him with a resounding crack. Left alone, Guildmaster Geist sighs wearily into his cup. As he watches the young man walk away, a single thought crystallizes in his mind. Even with all that strength, Heist is still just a kid. Months later, under a crescent moon, the S-rank adventurers Heist and Sasha are addressed with royal deference. Both respond affirmatively, acknowledging their titles of Your Highness. They stand in the throne room of the Kingdom of Hybelk, before the 13th king, Barbaros, who formally announces that he is issuing them official requests from the kingdom. Observing from the side are two other members of the royal court, identified as Quirce and Mien, who watch the proceedings with keen interest. The man, First Prince Quirce, steps forward to address Sasha directly. He tasks her with defeating crystal golems that have appeared in the crystal mines south of the kingdom, and declares that he will accompany her on the mission. Sasha humbly accepts the task. As she does, a young woman, excitedly turns to Heist, announcing that she will read his request next. His task is revealed. A journey to the sacred mountain of Gagazia, located within the territory of the forest kingdom of Igdora, to the east of Hybelk. Overjoyed at the prospect of her first adventure, the first Princess Muain accepts the request on his behalf and declares that she will be coming with him. Heist, however, immediately begins to protest. He voices his objection loudly, stating that he cannot allow Her Highness to accompany him. His outburst draws shocked and concerned looks from Muain, Quirce, Sasha, and King Barbaros. Muain demands to know why not. Heist explains that Gagazia is filled with numerous dangerous monsters. He estimates that while protecting her, the mission's success rate would drop to 80%, and more importantly, her life would be in danger. Muain counters, asking if that estimate takes his team into consideration. Ignoring her question, he turns to address the king directly. He reiterates that he cannot have the princess accompany him and requests permission to go alone, stating firmly, I work alone. In response to the adventurer's bold refusal, King Barbaros erupted not in anger, but in booming laughter, much to the bewilderment of a nearby courtier. The king declared that to think a member of the royal family could be told they cannot come along was certainly a first. He continued, explaining that the original intention was for the royal family to witness the rise of a new S-class adventurer. The king noted that he had heard of Heist's achievements, referencing reports on how he consistently takes on S-rank requests and completes them entirely on his own. Heist listened in silence, his expression unmoving. Princess Muane, aghast, turned to her father, pleading that this was meant to be her very first adventure. To her, in Heist's surprise, the king simply stated, "Very well then, I shall make an exception." His exception, however, was not what she hoped for. The king firmly ordered her to abandon any thoughts of accompanying Heist. Muane puffed her cheeks in silent, frustrated protest. With the matter settled, the king turned and announced the conclusion of the formal ceremony, clapping his hands to signal the start of the next event. At his command, a maid entered carrying a covered serving tray, announcing that a casual dinner party would now commence. Moments later, the formal tension had dissolved. The king, sharing a laugh and a drink with Guildmaster Geist, remarked that the young adventurer was certainly something else. Geist readily agreed as they stood before a lavish spread of food. Nearby, the anxious courtier apologized to Geist for the incident with the princess, but the guildmaster waved it off. The courtier admitted his relief, saying he didn't know what might have happened if Geist hadn't warned them beforehand. Geist confessed that while he had a feeling, he never imagined Heist would be so bold as to say it directly to the king. As they spoke, Geist's attention shifted. He pointed out that the cheeky girl, Princess Muane, was already making her way directly towards Sasha and her party. She approaches Sasha's group with a determined look, clasping her hands together. "Please," she begins, correcting herself. "Or rather, I request. Let me come with you, Sasha." Sasha observes with a gentle smile, realizing the princess has not yet abandoned her hope of accompanying an S-class adventurer. Sasha responds kindly, assuring the princess that she isn't a bother at all. However, her brother, Prince Quirce, steps in to reprimand her. "Don't be so selfish," he chides, complaining that this was supposed to be his first adventure. Muane reacts with a frustrated pout. Ignoring the prince's complaint, Sasha gives her answer. If Her Highness wishes to join them, she is more than welcome. Overjoyed, Muane's face lights up as she thanks Sasha profusely, insisting they call her by her first name. Watching the scene unfold from a balcony, Heist quietly judges the princess as childish. His gaze on his former comrades triggers a sudden, jarring memory. He sees them all together on the road, a seemingly ordinary moment that is sharply punctuated by a flash of his own wide-eyed shock from that time. He stands alone under the crescent moon, the unsettling memory lingering. Musing that he could go for a drink, he is suddenly startled by a voice calling out to him. An armored boot lands with a heavy thud on the stone nearby. Inside the guild hall, Heist expresses his relief to Guildmaster Geist, admitting how nervous he had been during his audience with the king. The Guildmaster notes that the situation wasn't something to be laughed at, but Heist chuckles, apologizing. He recalls his bold declaration to the king that he could not permit Her Highness to accompany him, which left Geist looking surprised. He acknowledges Geist's point, but the Guildmaster continues, explaining that the king found that part of him amusing. Geist warns him not to let it go to his head, reminding him that since he's going alone, no one will be there to watch his back. The Guildmaster then asks what he plans to do now. Heist clenches his fist with determination. He explains his plan is to continue taking on requests to improve his skills, adding that he still hasn't been able to decipher much of the ancient book he possesses. As a low rumble echoes from a distant, ominous castle under the crescent moon, Geist acknowledges the plan. Heist then announces that he will be going home. With that, he turns and begins to walk away, heading out through a large stone archway into the night. He has not gone far when a familiar voice calls out, "Heist, wait." He pauses, his expression hardening as he turns to see Sasha standing behind him. She explains that she wants to talk to him again, just the two of them, stating that she wanted to apologize. Heist, however, turns away from her, his face a cold mask as he declares that he has nothing to talk to her about. Her face registers shock at his cold dismissal. He tells her to stop messing with him and walks away, letting out a bitter, hollow laugh into the night. He unleashes 2 years of pent-up fury, demanding to know why Sasha would suddenly choose now to apologize. He roars that she had plenty of chances, but never took them, not even on the day he was almost killed. His mind flashes back to the day after his near-fatal encounter. He and Sasha walk together under the streetlights, a heavy silence between them until she hesitantly speaks his name. He remembers the moment he learned that the party had accepted a new, dangerous mission without him, the quest posting for a monstrous beast a clear sign of their decision to move on. In that memory, he had already told her that he didn't need her apology, accusing her of never intending to offer one in the first place as she stood by, stammering. Snapping back to the present, his voice turns cold and final. He tells her that whatever comes out of her mouth now means nothing to him. Sasha can only whisper his name, her face a mask of shock and pain. As he begins to turn away, she lunges forward, grabbing his arm in a desperate attempt to make him stay and listen. Her composure shatters. Crying in the rain, she finally confesses that she was scared and that she thought exiling him was for his own good, offering a broken apology. Her thoughts drift to a happier past, a time when she eagerly explained her vision to him. She had truly believed that if she could just make their shared dream a reality, he would eventually understand her difficult choices. But Heist shatters that notion, forcefully pushing her hand away. He commands her not to use him as an excuse, derisively reframing our dream as solely her dream, and questioning its worth when she was the only one living it. As Sasha stands paralyzed by his words, her face a portrait of devastation, Heiss walks away into the rain. He declares his new dream is to become the strongest all by himself, vowing never to discard the weak as she did. If achieving a dream requires such sacrifices, he concludes he would rather have been alone from the very start. She could only listen as Heiss' voice cut through the rain, his face inches from hers. Whatever her reasons for abandoning him, he declared she had also thrown away the dream they once shared. Sometime later, under a relentless downpour, a solitary figure walked the city streets. Heiss recalled Sasha's ultimate goal for the team to become the best. With a heavy, determined step, he urged her in his thoughts to pursue it, even if he was no longer in the picture. He pressed forward, leaving Sasha as a distant, solitary figure in the rain-swept archway behind him. A cold realization settled in his mind, hardening his resolve. They could never go back to how things were. Among the rarest of alchemical components is the eternal moongrass. An essential ingredient for concocting elixirs, its defining characteristic is the soft, ethereal glow it emits, as recorded in ancient texts. This mystical herb is said to grow only in one location, the peak of the sacred mountain Gagazia, a formidable summit located deep within the forest nation of Igdora. Elsewhere, Heiss takes stock of his new acquisitions. He manifests a new SS Plus rank coat, crafted from the hide of an ancient black dragon, which serves as durable armor. He also possesses an adventurer card for guild banking, a partially deciphered ancient book, and an exquisite high-grade ring that functions as an item box, capable of keeping anything from luggage to freshly grilled chicken in perfect stasis. He arrives at the Adventurers Guild, pulling out his card to examine his new S-rank status. At the counter, a guild receptionist politely informs him that the guildmaster is currently occupied, speaking with Sasha. Accepting this, Heiss turns his attention to the quest board, searching for any high-ranking requests he could undertake, though he notes the highest available seems to be a B-rank extermination quest. As he scans the board, a voice from behind startles him. He looks up to see a young woman with elven ears looking down at him, questioning his surprise. He quickly dismisses his reaction as nothing, though he is clearly flustered. The elf girl simply accepts his answer. He turns his focus back to the wall of posted requests, trying to regain his composure. The girl then asks if elves are uncommon in this area. Heiss, looking away, confirms that they are. She correctly assumes from this that he must not visit this region often. She explains that it is rare for elves to leave their home, the forest nation of Igdora, a territory quite distinct from the human kingdoms. She rummages through her belongings, explaining that after traveling west, she ended up in the central region. Heiss, leaning over the counter, confirms with her that today is indeed her first time at this guild. After a moment, she presents her adventurer card, identifying herself as Priscilla, a B-rank adventurer. Seeing Heiss is alone, she then asks about his party. He seems surprised by her question, remarking that it's the first time he's heard anyone else say something similar to what he would. He then turns the question back to her, asking about her own situation. Priscilla confidently states that she doesn't have a party, as she is strong enough to handle things herself. In response, Heiss slides his own card across the counter, revealing the unmistakable S of an S-rank adventurer. While looking over the quest board, Heiss admits that it's rare for an S-rank to be solo, a comment he gets often. He asks if she's currently doing a request, and she confirms she is, one in the forest nation of Igdora. His reaction is explosive. He grabs her shoulders, shouting in disbelief that she's going to Igdora. He quickly apologizes, asking her to forget he said anything, just as the guild receptionist calls out to him. She informs Heiss that the guild master is ready to see him, while muttering that he shouldn't talk about requests so carelessly. Priscilla is left momentarily stunned by the outburst. Heiss, however, casually tells her he'll see her later and begins to walk away with the receptionist. Meanwhile, in another part of the guild, Sasha speaks to an unseen figure, confirming that she also came to ask about the royal request. Her voice carries, and Heiss freezes mid-step, having clearly overheard. Priscilla, following behind him, is startled by his abrupt halt. She looks on with wide-eyed surprise as Heiss remains completely still, his attention captured by the words he just intercepted. He listened in silence from the guildmaster's room as Geist spoke of a formidable SS plus rank dragon. The beast, the guildmaster explained, resides at the peak of Mount Gagazia, a place so dangerous that even Yggdrasil, one of the 4 great clans, avoids it. The leader of this very clan, Yggdrasil, is the renowned elven hero known as Ibis. Clans, it was explained, are organizations that only S-rank adventurers can establish, serving as a parent organization for several adventurer teams. The Yggdrasil clan, in particular, is composed mostly of demi-humans. They operate with a degree of autonomy, able to accept requests and receive compensation directly, without needing to go through the guild. As this information settled, Geist presented Heiss with a sealed letter. Heiss stared at the object, a wax seal glinting on its surface, and questioned what it was. He asked if the guildmaster knew the leaders of the 4 great clans. Geist confirmed that after more than 40 years as an adventurer, one naturally builds connections. He instructed Heiss to give the letter of introduction to the Yggdrasil clan leader, assuring him it would be of great help. With the letter in hand, Heist declared his departure and swiftly vaulted out of the open window. As he left, Geist's voice followed him, wishing him to be careful. Outside the royal capital, Heist stands before the main gate, his large pack on his back. He glances over his shoulder, a shadow falling across his face as he prepares to depart from the city. His departure is interrupted by a sudden sound. In an instant, he spins around, drawing a large, complex firearm. With a sharp click, he readies the weapon and calls out into the empty landscape, demanding to know who is there. He fires a warning shot that erupts in a flash of light near a distant figure, warning that the next one will not miss. From afar, a voice quickly calls out in surrender. The figure reveals herself to be the elf, Persea. Heist, his weapon still raised, demands to know why she was following him. Persea explains that she has a favor to ask, one that only he can fulfill. When he dismissively tells her to find someone else, she insists it must be him. His suspicion remains. He asks for her reason. Persea states that she also wishes to travel to the sacred mountain of Gagazia and pleads to be allowed to accompany him until they arrive. She then reveals the specific purpose of her journey, to find the eternal moongrass. Heist questions what this has to do with him. Persea explains that the moongrass is the only thing that can save her sister, who lies gravely ill. She presents a document, stating she has every ingredient for a cure except for that one herb. However, it's impossible to get permission to enter the area where it grows, as it is currently the monster's mating season. She elaborates that the forest kingdom of Igdora is under the jurisdiction of the Highbell Kingdom. Therefore, an official request from the kingdom would guarantee entry. She looks at Heist intently, adding that if the request comes from him, it's a different matter entirely, hinting at his special status. Stunned, Heist demands to know how she is aware of his request. Persea sheepishly admits that she had a hunch and had eavesdropped on his conversation with the guildmaster, just as she had been secretly following him moments before. Her expression hardens with resolve. Clenching her fist, she declares that this is precisely why she must accompany him to Gagazia. Her voice is firm with desperation. She needs to save her sister. Her desperation mounting, she offered Heist all of her money if she could just retrieve the eternal moongrass. She pleaded for him to let her be his teammate until they reached the sacred mountain, insisting he could simply leave her corpse behind if she were to die along the way. Heist listened, his expression unreadable. Her face fell slightly, acknowledging that her personal reasons likely meant nothing to him. He finally spoke, a faint glow emanating from his hand. He stated that he didn't really care if she decided to follow him. He then set a firm condition, making it clear that they were not teammates and that if danger arose, she would be entirely on her own. She accepted his terms without hesitation, confidently replying that she could protect herself. With the matter settled, he grunted and turned to lead the way. After a few steps, he called out her name, Persea. She smiled, confirming her name and formally introducing herself. "Your name is Heist, right? Nice to meet you." He remained silent, his gaze fixed forward. Their introduction was abruptly cut short by a deafening bang that ripped through the forest. A nearby monster shrieked as it was violently struck down. The shot came from a large, intricate pistol now held by Heist. Persea stared at the unusual weapon, asking if it was his blessing. He confirmed it was, explaining his ability is called Spirit Command, which allows him to control spirits invisible to normal people. He specified that the spirit's name was Gagalia. As he spoke, a small, glowing, fairy-like creature materialized near his hand. Persea looked on in amazement, admitting that she couldn't actually see it. He listened as Persea explained her own blessing. It was called Weapon Master, an ability that allowed her to perfectly use weapons from another world. Heist questioned the meaning of this phrase, but Persea admitted she didn't fully understand it herself. With a curious expression, she then turned the question back to him, asking about his blessing. In response, Heist explained that so far, he could use about 4 different weapons, though he knew there were more he hadn't figured out yet. As he spoke, images of these strange armaments filled his mind. An M79 grenade launcher, a Benelli Nova, a Desert Eagle, and a rifle designated 1873. As he finished, Persea added a crucial detail about her own power. With a tap of her finger, a weapon began to materialize in a flash of light before her. She declared that she was the only one able to use them. With a dismissive gesture, Heist caused the materialized weapon to vanish. Standing atop a makeshift platform, he announced that they had talked enough. It was time to set up camp for the night. By a crackling fire under the night sky, Persea marvels at the well-equipped campsite. She expresses her amazement at the capacity of item boxes, surprised that Heist could carry so much equipment. He presents her with a warm meal on a tray, a sandwich, and a bowl of soup. As he offers it, Persea asks what he's making. Heist explains he bought an S-Class item box with the largest capacity back in the capital, which she finds enviable. She then questions his generosity, pointing out that they aren't even teammates. Heist simply replies that he just felt like it. Taking a bite, Persea's eyes widen in astonishment. She exclaims that it's amazing and that he's quite good at this. Heist explains that he used to do all the cooking and chores before. The meal is quickly finished, and Persea thanks him for it. He is taken aback, asking what, as he notices her staring intently at him. Her stare prompts a confused "huh" from Heist. Priscilla clarifies that she is genuinely grateful to him. She admits she had expected him to be a colder person, which seems to annoy him as he asks if she's trying to pick a fight. She explains the depth of her gratitude, revealing that because she is following him, she now has a chance to save her sister. The campfire crackles, the sound filling the quiet moment between them. Gazing into the flames, Heist quietly remarks that this kind of thing feels a bit nostalgic. Seeing his contemplative mood, Priscilla tells him he should rest. As her own thanks for the meal, she offers to ask the spirits to keep watch for the night. Heist looks at her for a moment before agreeing. He stops short, his eyes widening in astonishment at a sight in the distance. Beside him, Priscilla looks on as he audibly wonders what it is they are seeing. Before them stands a colossal, ancient tree, its sheer scale dominating the landscape. Priscilla explains that this is the great tree Yggdrasil, the base and symbol of the Yggdrasil clan. She continues with sparkling eyes, adding that it was created by the power of their clan master, Ibis, who is one of the legendary 4 sages that lead the great clans. Priscilla clarifies for Heist that the 4 great clans are immense powers, with each one's territory rivaling the size of an entire country. She details the other 3 clans: the northern censored Holy Knights, exclusive to those with sword-related blessings; the southern Cavern King, a vast mining entity run by dwarves; and the western Fantastic Fantasy, the world's largest entertainment district. Their journey brings them to the main gate of the forest nation Igdora. When a guard demands their papers, Heist nervously explains he has come on behalf of the royal family with a request to see someone named Gagazia. He glances back at the figure in the hooded cloak beside him, suddenly remembering Priscilla's need to remain hidden. His momentary hesitation is cut short by a sharp whisper from Priscilla, who asks what he is doing. He quickly whispers back for her to ignore it for now, trying to maintain his composure. Turning back to the elven guard, Heist presents an entrance certificate and a letter, explaining it's from an acquaintance of the clan master. The guard's eyes go wide with shock upon inspecting the letter. He asks them to wait and hurriedly departs. Moments later, an elderly attendant approaches, apologizing for the delay. He identifies Heist as Geist Sand's disciple and informs him that the master is calling for him, grabbing his arm to lead him away. He glanced back, bewildered as to how delivering Geist Sand's letter had escalated into such a complicated affair. Priscilla, her expression unreadable beneath her hood, simply stated that she would wait for him there. As the elderly attendant beckoned him forward, the elven guard walking beside them offered a grave warning. He explained that Ibis-sama's authority surpassed even that of the Igdora royal family, and impressed upon Heist the importance of not giving any offense. His gaze lifted, and he stopped short, his eyes widening in sheer disbelief at the structure looming before them. Before him stood a strange, lattice metal gate set into the very wood of the great tree. The elderly attendant explained that this device was called an elevator, a concept completely foreign to Heist. The contraption began to ascend with a mechanical whir, carrying them upward through the tree's interior. A soft chime announced their arrival at their destination. Stepping out, they found themselves before a serene, sun-dappled sanctuary nestled high among the branches. The attendant gestured toward the shrine, proclaiming it to be the sanctuary of Ibis-sama, where the clan master of Yggdrasil awaited. With a swift, sliding sound, a set of large double doors part ways. The doors opened to reveal 2 figures standing in the grand entrance of a vast library, Heist and his elderly attendant. They are viewed from a low angle by someone sitting on the floor before them. A voice offers a simple welcome. It belongs to an elven woman with long, light-colored hair, who brings a kizaru pipe to her lips. She is Ibis, the clan master of Yggdrasil and a disciple of Geist. She lounges casually with a playful smile, one leg propped up. Staring up at her, Heist is taken aback, recognizing her by name. Holding up a letter, she confirms with an amused hum that she has read Geist's message. She notes that it says he wants her to help Heist. She continues, adding that the letter also predicted that Heist would likely decline her assistance. The accuracy of this statement leaves Heist in a state of shock, unable to form a word. Ibis lets out a laugh, remarking that the cheeky brat Geist hit the nail on the head. She then leans in close to Heist, sniffing the air around him and commenting that there is something oddly nostalgic about him. Her investigation yields a result. She pulls back with a knowing smile, stating she can smell gunpowder on him and asks if he knows about guns. She then reminisces aloud, mentioning she used to have a teammate who used them. Seeing his opening, Heist presents the large, heavy book with the geometric pattern on its cover. He looks at her earnestly and asks if she knows anything about it. Her playful expression fades as her gaze falls upon the book. Her hand reaches out towards it as she begins to speak, her voice trailing off in recognition. That, she confirms Heist's suspicion, stating that she does indeed recognize the book. With a thoughtful expression, she remarks on her surprise that it still exists, her fingers gently opening the cover. Looking up from the open pages, she reveals its identity to Heist. It is the diary of a person named Nobunaga. He repeats the unfamiliar name, prompting a moment of slight panic from Ibis. She quickly composes herself and explains that Nobunaga was an individual who came from another world and somehow found their way into this one. She then cheerfully closes the book with a thud, admitting that despite her recognition, she cannot read the letters of another world. When Heise asks if she knows the contents, she confirms she does not, as Nobunaga never shared them. Heise, however, is taken aback by a sudden realization, questioning if he can actually read the letters within. His gaze falls upon the strange script, and a thought crystallizes in his mind. He can read more of the pages now than he could before. His reaction does not go unnoticed. Ibis leans forward, a sharp, intrigued glint in her eyes. Finding his newfound ability interesting, she asks him to tell her what the diary says, adding a polite but firm request that he take no offense at her curiosity. While sitting with Priscilla, Heise reads from his mysterious book. He recites a passage declaring the elven hero Ibis to be the cutest in the world, who had come to visit someone. Priscilla, flustered, stammers in disbelief. Heise continues reading a strange thought from the book about gifting Ibis cat ears and a tail, which only agitates Priscilla more. She insists he pay attention to her instead, but Heise seems newly motivated by the bizarre idea. Her patience worn thin, Priscilla forcefully shoves Heise out of the room. She declares that's enough for one day, telling him to return another time if he needs more help before bidding him a firm farewell. Walking away from the dwelling near the peak of the sacred mountain Gagazia, he sighs, looking down at the book. He notes what a coincidence it is that he can suddenly read more pages, wondering if the book possesses a will of its own. His thoughts are interrupted as he notices a lone figure disappearing through a distant gate. Later, as he and Priscilla ascend a mountain path, she comments on the thickening fog. Just as Heise confirms they are nearing the top, a colossal, shadowy worm-like monster erupts from the ground with a deafening roar. The creature lunges instantly. With a sharp click of his tongue, Heise shoves Priscilla out of its path just as she cries out in terror. He immediately counters, firing a concussive blast of energy from his palm that slams into the monster's flank, splattering its dark form across the rocky terrain. The impact shatters the ground beneath them. As the ledge crumbles, Priscilla watches in alarm, barely able to see through the fog. A heavy thud echoes as a large piece of the monster's body falls nearby. As the wounded beast writhes, Heise quickly deduces that it uses the fog to its advantage while hunting. Warning Priscilla to stay on her toes, he prepares his next move as a glowing lattice of energy forms around his hand. In a sparse, wintry forest, Priscilla turns to Heise and questions his motives. She asks why he would help her, pointing out that they are not teammates. Heise, looking away, simply reminds her of her stated goal, to save her sister. The answer leaves Priscilla wide-eyed with surprise. She clenches her fist, telling him to consider it thanks for everything he has taught her. Heise begins to walk away, stating that while he has no obligation to save her, he also has no reason not to help her save her sister. He declares that is all there is to it. Her expression softens, and with tears welling in her eyes, Priscilla offers a sincere thank you. Heise curtly accepts her gratitude. Their moment is shattered by a monstrous roar that echoes from the distance, causing Heise to flinch in alarm. He looks up, identifying the sound as that of a dragon. Priscilla speculates that it has likely gone out to hunt. Realizing this presents an opportunity, she declares it the best time to get the eternal moongrass and immediately dashes away. Heise whirls around, shouting for her as she sprints into the woods. Priscilla calls back over her shoulder, promising she will be right back after she grabs the item. He watches her disappear, frustrated by her recklessness. He mutters to himself that she is underestimating the dragon, knowing that the creatures are extremely territorial and will return the moment something enters their domain. Desperate, he shouts for her to wait, even offering her the rewards after he gets back. But his plea is cut short. Cursing his luck, he is thrown off balance as the very ground before him erupts, and a massive, worm-like monster bursts forth from the earth. As dust and debris fill the air, a distant voice cuts through the chaos. It is Priscilla, announcing her return. Far across the clearing, she is visible, having successfully completed her task, seemingly oblivious to the new danger that has just appeared. The focus settles on a patch of glowing flora, the eternal moongrass, nestled in the dark undergrowth, the prize for which Priscilla risked everything. The scene shifts to Priscilla, who has reached her destination. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she frantically scans the empty, grassy clearing. She had been certain this was the place, but there is nothing here. She thinks to herself that she must find the eternal moongrass quickly, while there is still time. Her frantic search yields nothing. The hope that had propelled her forward drains away, and she collapses to her knees. The devastating realization hits her. The eternal moongrass is all gone. There is none left. Overwhelmed by her failure, Priscilla's shoulders slump. With her head bowed, she whispers an apology to her sister, knowing that without the moongrass, she won't be able to make the elixir. Unseen by her, Heise rushes across the field, closing the distance between them. His approach is cut short by a deafening roar that shakes the very ground. A monstrous creature, a green elephant dragon of SS+ rank, materializes before them, its massive form eclipsing the sky. It fixes its unblinking eyes upon them, a terrifying glare promising imminent destruction. Both Heise and Priscilla are frozen in shock and terror. The green elephant dragon lets out a deafening roar, its massive, grotesque form looming over Priscilla. She stands her ground, her expression hardening with resolve as she faces the colossal beast. She realizes her only chance is to hurt the monster enough to distract it and create an opening for escape. With a swift movement, she lunges forward, thrusting her spear-like weapon, which glows with concentrated energy. Her energy-charged strike hits the monster's head squarely, but it merely glances off with a faint spark. Persea looks on in disbelief, realizing with a shock that her spiritual energy has no effect. Undeterred, she resolves to try an even stronger attack. In response to her futile effort, the beast bellows furiously. Its long, forked tongue shoots out from its gaping maw, aimed directly at the terrified Persea, who trembles, frozen in its path. The creature's tongue whips around her, first knocking her weapon from her grasp before wrapping tightly around her entire body. She lets out a choked cry as the appendage begins to squeeze relentlessly. Suddenly, a loud bang echoes through the clearing as a projectile strikes the monster's tongue. The impact is forceful, causing the beast to cry out in pain and surprise as dark fluid erupts from the wound. From the edge of the clearing, Heiss appears, panting heavily. Persea, still caught in the monster's grip, calls out his name in disbelief, asking what he is doing there. He shouts back, calling her a dumbass for her recklessness and ordering her to stay back as he drops his heavy luggage with a thud. He opens fire with a small, rapid-fire weapon, peppering the monster's hide with a barrage of projectiles. The shots strike the beast but seem to have little effect, merely bouncing off its tough skin. He observes that the attack isn't powerful enough to be lethal. With that realization, Heiss draws a much larger, shotgun-like weapon. He cocks it with a sharp, mechanical sound, taking aim at the monster that still holds Persea captive. He expertly twirls the firearm, ejecting a spent shell and loading a new one in a fluid motion. A powerful blast erupts from the barrel as he fires again, sending a new round hurtling toward the beast. He pulled the trigger. A deafening blast tore through the night as the projectile slammed directly into the green elephant dragon's face. The impact was immense, sending a spray of dark fluid into the air as the monster's head snapped back from the sheer force of the blow. With a final, ground-shaking thud, the massive green elephant dragon collapses, defeated. Standing over the fallen beast, Persea turns to Heiss with concern, asking if he is all right. He confirms he is, still marveling at how easily he took down the dragon. Persea, relieved, wonders aloud if it's truly dead, but Heiss senses something is amiss, stating, "No way." She approaches him as he catches his breath, questioning why he came after she had told him to wait. Heiss simply glances at her, remaining silent. A blush creeps across her face as she wonders if he rushed to her side to save her. Quickly changing the subject to hide her fluster, she suggests they leave due to the growing smell. Heiss starts to agree, but Persea suddenly stops him, asking what's wrong as she points to a faint light. He looks and notes that the plants are glowing, recalling that they aren't supposed to do so during the day. Before their eyes, one of the glowing plants shrivels and its light extinguishes. Heiss identifies it with a start, the eternal moongrass. Both are alarmed by its sudden decay. They gaze out at the field, witnessing the blight spread as all the moongrass begins to wither. Persea theorizes that the dragon's blood is causing the decay, but Heiss stares in disbelief, convinced that can't be the reason. He remains lost in thought, just as Persea laments that this is happening right after they finally found their prize. Her attention is suddenly caught by something in the distance, and she calls out, pointing, "Hey, over there!" She dashes across the dying field toward a single, resilient patch of glowing flora. As she gets closer, she pulls out a small glass jar, her eyes fixed on the shining prize. With delicate movements, Persea carefully scoops the last surviving specimen of eternal moongrass into the jar, its light pulsing softly before she seals the lid. She turns back to Heiss and presents the glowing jar to him. With a bright smile, she declares that since he was the one who took down the dragon, the reward belongs to him. He accepts the jar, its light illuminating his face. He confirms that this completes their request, then quietly muses that he might be able to find more of the moongrass if he searches elsewhere. As he and Persea arrive at the mountain path's entrance, they are met by a group of elves. One of the women spots them, her eyes wide with relief as she cries out Persea's name. A young male elf from the group steps forward, his hand clenching Persea's arm. He introduces himself as Adra, expressing his relief at finally finding her, but also his frustration at her sudden disappearance after leaving only a note. Heiss glances over, taken aback by the sudden confrontation. His attention then shifts to Heiss. With a knowing look, Adra correctly identifies him as the S-rank adventurer who took Persea to Gagazia. Heiss, looking weary, offers a simple, one-word confirmation. Another elven woman then speaks, revealing a critical piece of information to Heiss. Persea is the younger sister of Queen Alcera, the ruler of the forest kingdom of Igdora, and thus not a person to be trifled with. She then turns to Persea, inquiring about the outcome of her journey. In response, Adra coldly states that since Persea was unable to retrieve anything from the sacred mountain, it is time for her to cease her efforts. He dismisses her sister's plight as mere fate, which provokes a furious outburst from Persea, who accuses him of wanting her to abandon her sister to die. The other woman cuts the argument short, telling Priscilla it is time to return home. She adds that they also have matters concerning their marriage to discuss. As Adra smirks in satisfaction, Heiss, standing silently behind them, clenches his fist. He then steps forward, gently patting Priscilla on the head. He tells her it sounds like she needs to get going and offers a simple farewell before turning his back and walking away. Priscilla can only watch, stunned into silence, as he departs. In the Queen's room of the Forest Nation of Igdora, Priscilla stands before her sister, Queen Alsra, who lies weak in bed. With tears in her eyes, Priscilla apologizes, confessing that she was unable to find any eternal moongrass. Alsra, however, reaches out a hand and gently tells her that it is fine. The Queen refers to Priscilla as her sister, stating that this outcome is simply destiny. She then changes the subject, asking Priscilla to tell her all about her travels through the West and Central lands, to which Priscilla nods. Before she can begin her stories, however, Priscilla suddenly remembers something else. Announcing that she brought souvenirs, she begins to rustle through her belongings, causing Alsra to look up with a questioning expression. From her pack, Priscilla pulls out a glowing plant, the eternal moongrass. Alsra stares in utter shock, confirming its identity. With tears of relief now streaming down her face, Priscilla utters a single name, Heiss. A few days later, Heiss is sitting at a table when Adra approaches him. Adra expresses his disbelief, stating that he can't believe Heiss failed the request. He continues, explaining that while the request was a mere formality from the royal family, it still would have been better if Heiss had succeeded, especially since he was so adamantly against the princess accompanying him. Heiss remains silent, sipping his drink. Adra then asks what Heiss plans to do now. Heiss states he'll do the same as always, accept requests and clear dungeons. Anticipating this, Adra unfurls a scroll, revealing a new request to investigate a recently discovered dungeon, saying he had a feeling Heiss would say that. As Adra bids him farewell, a voice calls out Heiss' name. He turns, startled, to find Priscilla standing in the doorway. She offers him a warm smile as he stares back, confusedly asking why she is there. She explains that she was able to cure her sister's illness with an elixir made from the eternal moongrass he gave her. Her sister has already recovered enough to return to her royal duties. Looking at him earnestly, Priscilla states that she owes him big time. His expression unreadable. Heiss looks directly at her and asks bluntly, "So what do you want now?" He listens, his expression weary, as Priscilla explains the outcome of her actions. As a reward for her feats, she has been granted the freedom to travel as she pleases and has also broken off her engagement with Adra. With this newfound liberty, she declares her desire to repay Heiss for everything. He bluntly asks her to get to the point. In response to his directness, Priscilla smiles brightly and clarifies her intentions. She states that while she doesn't propose they become comrades or teammates, she would be happy to serve as his talking buddy. Without a moment's hesitation, he begins to walk away, flatly rejecting her offer. Undeterred, Priscilla cheerfully asks for his opinion on her idea. Her cheerful expression wavers for a moment as she watches him depart. She quickly closes the distance, placing a hand on his shoulder to stop him. She then asks if he would at least be willing to have a meal with her. A few days later, the two are walking through a town. Priscilla points toward a nearby cafe, cheerfully offering to treat him to a meal now that they are all gathered. Heiss remains silent, his thoughts unreadable. The group is indeed large, comprising not only Heiss and Priscilla, but also his former comrades, Sasha, Reynold, Robin, Piazzala, and Tycoon, along with the elven noble Adra and the royals, Quirce and Yen. Taking the lead, Sasha rallies the assembly, declaring their readiness to undertake the royal request to hunt down a crystal golem. At the entrance to the crystal mines, Sasha halts the group. She states that to defeat the crystal golem, they must increase their attack power to penetrate its tough body. She calls for everyone to go over the plan one more time as they walk toward the mine's entrance. She begins outlining the strategy, explaining they will start by using Prince Quirce's double ability to create a duplicate of herself, effectively doubling her presence on the battlefield. Continuing her explanation, Sasha details the next step. Robin will use their arrows, which Princess Muane will then enhance with her explosion magic. She declares that once the explosive arrows strike the golem, she will follow up with her own attack. Sasha states her reliance on everyone for cover, and the assembled heroes, Quirce, Muane, Heiss, and Robin, listen with focused determination. With the plan laid out, she turns to the royal siblings, Quirce and Muane, and asks if they are both ready to proceed. Muane shouts her readiness with enthusiasm, while Quirce gives a firm, confident confirmation that he is also prepared. Satisfied with their response, Sasha gives the command to begin, taking a decisive step forward into the darkness of the mine. The party ventures inside the mines, revealing a cavern where large, glowing crystals jut out from the wooden support beams and rock walls. As they walk, Muane remarks on the beauty of the mine, noting it is filled with very high-quality ore. She explains that mining here is only allowed for manufacturing tributes for other nations, and any unauthorized mining is met with immediate execution, no questions asked. Muane adds that she has also heard the ores deeper within the mine are even more beautiful and pure. Heiss, intrigued, asks if this is true. As he speaks, Sasha's attention is drawn elsewhere. She has noticed a mysterious glow emanating from nearby. Her gaze fixes on a hulking figure in a cavern ahead. "Hold it," she commands, her voice sharp. Before them stands a crystal golem. As she stares, Robin asks for a count. Reynold, noticing her tense expression, questions what she means by something being off. The answer becomes clear as more figures stomp into view. A total of 7 golems occupy the area. 5 patrol the main mine floor in a coordinated pattern, while 2 others stand guard near a processing area deeper within. Heist finds this behavior perplexing. Golems are known to be simple monsters, mutated from ore or rock with no real intelligence. Robin voices this shared concern, noting that their movements seem far too coordinated. He turns to their leader. "Sasha, what should we do?" Reynold asks, pointing out that they're obviously outnumbered. Heist silently agrees, realizing these creatures possess a level of consciousness they shouldn't have. After a moment of consideration, she places a reassuring hand on Heist's head. With renewed determination, she declares they will stick to the plan and calls out, "Double." The complex strategy flashes through their minds. A duplicate of Sasha materializes as they recall Prince Quirce entrusting the next step to them. Robin acknowledges the command, and the memory of Princess Muane's voice rings out, calling for her explosion magic. In the present, Robin acts on the command, drawing back their bowstring with a fan of multiple arrows knocked and ready. "All right, let's do this," they declare. The volley is loosed. The arrows streak through the air, each one erupting in a powerful explosion upon impact, shattering the crystal golem's formation in a cloud of dust and concussive force. With a powerful cry, Sasha unleashes her technique, Silver Flash, Lotus Strike. A brilliant, wide arc of energy erupts from her blade, sweeping through the ranks of the crystal golems before her. The impact is devastating. The crystalline bodies of the golem shatter into countless pieces, the battlefield littered with the remnants of the defeated monsters as Sasha's party stands amidst the aftermath. Sheathing her sword with a soft click, Sasha calmly declares that it is over. Nearby, Princess Muane and Priscilla watch in admiration. Muane thinks Sasha is incredibly cool, while Priscilla remarks that her double ability is truly amazing. She thanks her for the compliment, but adds a crucial detail about her power. Once she has used double on something, she cannot use it on that same target again for at least a day. Muane seems to understand. Her attention, however, is drawn to a dark, foreboding passageway nearby. She internally notes that she felt an ominous aura coming from that direction and had hoped she could use her ability again. Reynold, seeing her intense focus, questions if she is serious about investigating. Sasha confirms that she is, adding that she doesn't believe it's just another crystal golem. Far away, Heist's eyes narrow in concentration. He too senses the presence, realizing with certainty that whatever it is, it knows they are there. Back with the group, Sasha takes a determined step forward. She announces that while this is not part of their request, they cannot ignore it. She commands everyone to stay alert as they're going in. The party ventures into the designated crystal processing area. As they enter the dilapidated space, a voice echoes from within, asking if they sensed his presence and decided to come over. The source of the voice is a horned young man sitting casually on a pile of rubble. Sasha demands to know who he is. He smirks, calling her the talented one, before introducing himself. "Me? I am Crane, and I'm a demon." His declaration hung in the air, stunning the adventurers. Heist, his eyes wide with disbelief, stammered, questioning if he had truly heard the word demon. He recalled the old tales. Demons were a race that fought a great war against humanity, with the fate of both races on the line a very long time ago. That great war, according to history, ended when a powerful human used his abilities to split the continent in two. One part became the human realm, where they now lived, and the other became the demon realm, the place where the demons were said to reside. Connecting these facts, Sasha challenged the Horn Man. Since he was a demon, she reasoned, he must be aware of their capabilities. Crane smirked, acknowledging her intelligence. Unfazed, Sasha pressed further, demanding to know how he was there, as travel between the human and demon realms was believed to be impossible. Her question went unanswered as Heist, gripped by terror, urgently warned Sasha that they needed to get out of there immediately. Sasha turned toward him, her expression shifting to confusion at his sudden panic. Heist's fear was rooted in history. In the Great War, the demons numbered only a few thousand, yet they were so powerful that they battled against tens of thousands of humans, a testament to their overwhelming individual strength. Crane, however, seemed to take Sasha's sharp questioning as a compliment. With a casual air, he decided to let them off the hook for the day, telling them they could thank Mr. Glasses over there. He turned to leave, his demeanor relaxed. As he walked away, Sasha noticed he was carrying a glowing, high-purity crystal. She demanded to know his plans for it, but he simply stated that he already had what he came for. He then dismissed her entirely, claiming she wouldn't understand his purpose even if he explained it. With a cold finality, he warned them to stay out of his way, lest he be forced to squash them. The condescending threat echoed in the chamber. Sasha's eyes widened slightly as she processed the sheer arrogance of his words, to squash them, as if they were nothing. Holding the crystal aloft, Crane smiled broadly. He mused that humans are like insects, utterly incapable of resisting the lure of treasure. He holds the crystal, seemingly unconcerned, as Sasha confronts him from atop a fractured piece of earth, her sword ready. She demands to know what he thinks he is doing. After a moment, she declares that she now understands the situation, but the demon merely offers a quizzical "huh" in response. The rest of the party reacts to the standoff. Tycoon cries out Sasha's name in alarm, while Reynolds sternly reminds him that mining anything in the kingdom of Highbelt without permission is grounds for execution. Robin and Piazzala glare with unified anger. Crane, however, remains dismissive, explaining that an insect has crawled into the kingdom and he is simply exterminating it. His words cause Sasha's eyes to widen in shock. His gaze sweeps over the assembled heroes, a faint, analytical smile playing on his lips as he assesses their collective strength. His attention sharpens, and he remarks on an interesting ability one of them possesses. The moment of observation ends abruptly. However, he begins, making a swift motion with his hand that unleashes an unseen force, causing Sasha to gasp and recoil. Crane stands over the defeated heroes, flicking his finger and dismissing his power as nothing compared to a true demon skill. Below, Reynolds groans in pain as Sasha calls out his name, her expression one of pure annoyance at their new foe. He turns his attention to Sasha, declaring his intent to deal with her first. In a flash, Reynolds intercepts, shouting defiance as he raises a shield, only to be met with a powerful gust of wind that leaves him stunned. In response to the hero's shock, Crane smirks. He confirms that the wind is his skill, one he can control freely, demonstrating by effortlessly levitating and scattering heavy wooden crates around him. He then unleashes his power on a grander scale, hovering in the center of a massive vortex of wind and debris. He gloats that the power of demons is on a completely different level from pathetic humans, boasting that he could destroy a whole town with a single storm. Sasha, however, remains unfazed. She acknowledges that his ability is amazing, but reminds him that in a fight, strength isn't everything. She declares that it still won't be enough to defeat them. Crane merely scoffs, questioning what she could possibly do. As he speaks, a projectile strikes him squarely, erupting in a sudden explosion. He grunts in pain, caught completely by surprise by the unexpected attack. The source is revealed. Robin, who realizes with a start that the archer had cleverly mixed an arrow in with the debris Crane was telekinetically gathering. Enraged by the trick, Crane prepares to retaliate. But before he can, Sasha extends her hand, calmly stating her intent to return the attack. A massive explosion engulfs the area. The blast is stopped cold. Reynolds stands firm, his shield deployed to protect the entire party. Tycoon, Robin, Piazzala, and even Heiss, who has rejoined them. Crane can only stare in utter disbelief. Facing the stunned demon, Sasha calmly explains that even if her powers alone aren't enough to rival his, she is not fighting by herself. She declares with conviction that together, through teamwork, they can become even stronger. The demon, Crane, recoils in pain, letting out a strangled cry as the combined assault takes its toll. He stumbles to his knees, clutching an arm that bleeds a dark, viscous fluid. Looking down at the struggling demon, Sasha asserts that this very moment is proof of her words. His pain quickly turns to incandescent rage. He screams at Sasha, incensed that a mere human would dare to make a fool of him. His fury escalating, he makes a terrible vow. He will destroy all of her friends, her precious loved ones, and her entire country. With a final, chilling promise, he swears that after annihilating everything she holds dear, he will kill her and then end his own life, punctuating his threat with a final, guttural roar. Mark my words. In response to his own declaration, a violent explosion of dark, swirling energy erupts from his position, blasting outwards across the battlefield. Through the swirling chaos, her expression remains unbroken. She watches the display of raw power with a steady, resolute gaze, her resolve unshaken by the demon's desperate threat. At the royal castle in the Highbelt Kingdom, a voice ponders the news just received. Demons. Inside the throne room, sacred leader Sasha stands before King Barbaros, confirming the report. She explains that the demon calls himself Crane and seems to be plotting something. The king listens, stroking his beard in thought. The king praises Sasha for her excellent work on the request, and she thanks him for his kind words. Prince Quirce, standing beside Princess Muane, expresses his desire to hear the party's perspective directly. The king then adds that while Sasha's party accomplished their task without fail, Heiss, on the other hand, has failed his. The mention of Heiss' name catches Sasha by surprise. He continues, stating that an appropriate reward is in order for their success, and asks what it is they would like. In response, Sasha boldly requests a clan home for a party. The king agrees readily, explaining that he had a feeling they would ask for such a thing and had a minister look into it beforehand. The minister steps forward. He presents a large tray laden with scrolls, telling the assembled sacred party to pick whichever one suits their desires. Sasha, Reynolds, Robin, Piazzala, and Tycoon gaze at the selection with wide-eyed excitement. As Robin thanks Minister Bonet, who notes the new home has a huge bath, The minister leans in conspiratorially. He asks if she's perhaps curious about Heiss failing his request, before waving it off as nothing at all. The minister then reveals a crucial piece of information. According to a report from Igdora, Heiss did, in fact, manage to procure a single eternal moongrass. Sasha listens to this revelation, her expression unreadable. However, the report continues. Upon hearing that Queen Alcera of the Elves was gravely ill, Heiss gave the precious item to her younger sister, Persea, instead. Persea now holds the glowing moongrass, a look of astonishment on her face. In a formal chamber, Minister Bonnet reports to Sasha. He confirms that while Heiss may have failed his official request, he received gratitude for saving a member of the Igdora royal family. The minister adds that Her Majesty wished to reward Heiss for his actions, but he declined the offer. Sasha then hesitantly asks what Persea has been up to recently. Beside her, Robin cheerfully remarks that this behavior is just like the Heiss they know, still not greedy in the slightest. In response, the minister reveals what he has heard. Persea has supposedly left Igdora and is now traveling together with Heiss, continuing her life as an adventurer. A vision of the two walking away together accompanies his words. The news is met with disbelief. Robin shouts Heiss' name in shock, while Sasha can only stare stunned. She internally questions the report, her expression hardening as she wonders if Heiss is truly planning to team up with Persea. Meanwhile, Heiss himself is startled from his exhaustion by a sudden suggestion that he should rest. He finds himself in the Guildmaster's office, where Guildmaster Geist informs him that the high-level dungeon investigation request is officially over. Heiss protests, pointing out they only reached the 60th floor, but the Guildmaster explains that they've opened the floors above 60 for other adventurers to tackle. When Heiss asks about other high-level requests, Geist confirms there are none available. The Guildmaster then adopts a more paternal tone, reminding Heiss that taking a break is important. He notes that Heiss is still only 16 and should enjoy his youth, even suggesting he go on a date. Heiss, looking away, replies that he isn't interested and doesn't have anyone in mind. His words, however, seem to trigger a thought. As an image of smiling Persea flashes through his mind, the Guildmaster teases him, asking, "You have Persea, don't you?" The question catches Heiss completely off guard, causing him to spill his drink. He quickly dismisses the idea as a joke and tries to change the subject, but internally, he reflects that Persea is only following him because she has her own objectives. He looked over as a flyer was presented to him, with the suggestion that they give the advertised place a try. The flyer was for an annual used book market in Loberia, the city of books. Persea explained that they might find rare books there, suggesting it as a good way to kill time. Heiss processed her words, his thoughts lingering on the idea of old books. The location was specified as the Luzon Old Commercial District within the Highbelk royal capital. Without waiting for a response, Persea announced she was heading to the book market and turned to depart. Startled, Heiss realized she was going alone. He grumbled that she could do as she pleased, annoyed that she had been eavesdropping on his thoughts again, but conceded that they could go their separate ways once they arrived. He watched her go, noting to himself that she had run off on her own as soon as they arrived in the bustling Old Commercial District. Now alone, Heiss looked up at the architecture of the surrounding buildings. His gaze settled on a sign for a bookstore, and with nothing else to do, he decided to head inside. Inside, he was immediately impressed by the vast collection. He let out a small sound of surprise, taking in the sheer amount of books and items filling the shop. His attention was then drawn to a specific volume lying on a table, its title clearly legible: The Adventures of the S-Rank Adventurer, Gerald. Intrigued, he reached for the book, deciding he would read it for now. He wondered if an S-Rank adventurer named Gerald had ever truly existed, making a mental note to check with the guild when he had free time. Just as his fingers made contact with the book's spine, another hand landed directly on top of his, reaching for the very same volume. He looks up from the book, his hand still touching the stranger's. It is Sasha, the leader of his former party, her eyes wide with surprise as she begins to stammer an apology. She stammers his name in disbelief. Heiss, pulling his hand back, offers a curt greeting and a brief apology for the accidental touch. In the background, Persea watches the unexpected reunion unfold. Their awkward moment is interrupted by another familiar voice. Reynold, the party's vice leader, approaches with a casual greeting for Heiss. Seeing them together, Reynold immediately and cheerfully assumes they're on a date, much to Persea's silent, wide-eyed shock. He casually drapes an arm over Sasha's shoulders. Flustered, she calls out Reynold's name and quickly tries to clarify to Heiss that they are not on a date. Heiss, however, simply offers a non-committal agreement to Reynold's earlier observation. The scene shifts. At a small table, a cup of tea rests as Persea gently calls out his name, trying to get his attention. She asks if something is wrong. Noticing his distant expression, Persea suggests his mood is due to the heavy stack of books he's carrying and offers to help, proposing they take a break for tea. Heiss quietly deflects her concern, claiming it's nothing. As his former party members begin to walk away, Sasha glances back at him, her expression filled with unspoken worry. A short time later, Heiss sits alone, watching from a distance as Sasha and Reynold disappear down the street. Now seated at an outdoor cafe, Persea breaks the silence. She asks him about the woman from the book market, confirming that it was Sasha, his former teammate. A quiet moment passes, marked only by the steam rising from a cup on the table. He finally responds, confirming that they were indeed teammates long ago, but dismisses it as something that no longer matters to him. Priscilla recalls her own research, remembering that their connection ran deeper. They were childhood friends. He remained quiet as Priscilla, her hands clasped, posed a question. She looked at him intently, asking if his feelings for the girl, Sasha, were of affection or hatred. In response, he told her that if she had truly done her research, she would already know the answer. He stated bluntly that Sasha had nearly gotten him killed, a brief, violent memory of facing a monster flashing in his mind. Priscilla conceded that might be true, but her expression showed she felt there was more to the story. His gaze turned distant, his face etched with resolve as he declared that things could not go back to the way they used to be. Priscilla, however, challenged his fatalism. Hearing his declaration, she asked him directly, "But did you ever try to?" Her question triggered a memory of pure chaos from the deepest parts of a high-level dungeon. A demonic, horned figure named Crane roared in fury, screaming curses about a shitty damned brat. As a massive beast loomed, Crane vowed that he would kill her. Standing over the now-subdued monster, a cruel idea formed in Crane's mind. He mused about causing a stampede, finding the thought of the look on the brat's face highly entertaining. He ground his foot into the creature's head, his face twisting into a sadistic grin. He taunted the dying beast, telling it that if it didn't want to die, it knew exactly what it had to do. 1 month passes. Outside a prominent building, a large banner bearing a complex, trident-like crest flutters in the wind, signaling the presence of a powerful organization. News of this group's influence spreads. A newspaper article proclaims that the Sacred Clan continues to make significant strides, and it announces the approaching day of the 5 Great Clans, an event that has seemingly expanded from 4. Inside the bustling Adventurers Guild, a receptionist calls out as a group of adventurers approaches her counter. One of them, a young man with spiky black hair, lets out a sigh of relief, having finally completed their task. She warmly congratulates the party, identified as Team 1000, on their successful advancement to D rank. The team, Heiss, a tall blonde man, a woman with dark hair, and another with pigtails, celebrates together, with Heiss thanking her profusely. The receptionist chuckles, noting how hard they've all been working since joining the Sacred Clan. As she speaks, the dark-haired woman playfully elbows Heiss in the ribs, causing him to yelp in surprise. He, now known as Roland, agrees but is quick to deflect the praise, stating he hasn't forgotten that their success wasn't his alone. He credits his teammates, Qua, Tina, and Mad, insisting their promotion was only possible because of everyone's combined efforts. Tina chimes in, agreeing with him but adding that getting into the Sacred Clan in the first place was still an amazing feat. She then teases Roland, reminding him of how incredibly nervous he was when they first joined, which makes him jolt with embarrassment as Priscilla watches from the background. His teammates continue the light-hearted conversation. Tina admits she was nervous too, and Mad concurs. Qua explains that she understands the feeling, as they all respect and admire Sasha. This line of conversation leaves Roland flustered, defensively asking what they expect him to do about it, given that it's Sasha's clan. He shakes off the embarrassment, his expression shifting to one of fiery determination. Clenching his fist, he boldly declares that it's only a matter of time before their team reaches S-Rank 2. His sudden declaration is met with a swift smack to the back of the head from Qua's paper fan. She demands to know what he's suddenly getting so worked up about. He approaches the Adventurers Guild counter, where the receptionist thanks him for his hard work. Behind him, his former party members from the Sacred Clan watch and whisper, wondering if this is the same Heiss they knew, now rumored to be a solo S-rank adventurer known as the Avatar of Darkness. His expression is grim and intense, a stark contrast to the receptionist's flustered reaction. He presents a set of equipment, explaining it belonged to an iron metal goblin he defeated and that he has no need for it. He asks her to return the items to the owner's family, leaving his old party members stunned by his casual disposal of valuable gear. He then slams a monstrous head onto the counter, adding that these are the materials from the A-rank goblin as well. The sheer size and grotesque nature of the trophy send a wave of terror through the onlookers, including the receptionist and his former comrades. While his old party recoils in a mixture of fear and awe, the receptionist agrees to process the materials. Just then, Guild Master Geist appears, his expression grave. He informs Heiss that the royal family has summoned all S-rank adventurers and that he must come immediately. The scene shifts to the Grand Council room, where the kingdom's most powerful figures are assembled. Guild Master Geist stands before them, ready to begin his briefing. Without further ado, he announces, "Allow me to cut to the chase." Among those present are the leaders of the great clans. Chaos, the master of the Judgment Clan, Mamla, an S-class adventurer known as the Fighting Mother, and Jonathan, the formidable master of the Barbarian Clan. Geist's voice fills the chamber as he reveals the nature of the crisis. For reasons yet unknown, B-class monsters have begun to multiply at an explosive rate. He explains that this surge is occurring within a high-level dungeon near the royal capital, the very same one Heiss had previously investigated. With many people having gone missing recently, they were forced to intervene to put a stop to it. The faces of Heiss, Sasha, and Guildmaster Geist are set with grim determination as the gravity of the situation sinks in. Geist's report reaches its climax. What we found, he states, his voice echoing ominously, was at the upper floors of the dungeon. With a grave expression, Guildmaster Geist addresses the assembled S-rank adventurers, uttering two words that cause a wave of shock to ripple through the room. Signs of a stampede. He explains that a stampede is a catastrophic disaster where an overbreeding of dungeon bosses causes a drastic increase in the monster population, forcing them to overflow and attack nearby towns and villages. Geist continues, revealing that after the dungeon was opened to the public, the Tyrant Bomber, a boss meant for the 60th floor, began appearing on the 10th. King Barbaros, listening intently, requests a more detailed explanation, which Geist readily provides. He elaborates that it wasn't just the high-level boss. Monsters from the 40th and 50th floors also started appearing on much earlier levels. This chain reaction pushed the weaker monsters that belonged on the early floors completely out of the dungeon. Chaos, the Judgment Clan master, asked for the number of displaced creatures. Geist then recounts a historical precedent. 30 years prior, a stampede occurred at an intermediate-level dungeon. Pointing to a map, he warns that the current swarm is highly likely to be heading towards the royal capital. He reveals the staggering scale of that past event, stating that approximately 20,000 monsters were suddenly unleashed upon the world. The consequences were devastating. 3 towns within the Highbelk region were utterly destroyed, and an additional 7 villages were wiped from existence. Bringing the focus back to the current crisis, Geist grimly notes that since this stampede originates from a high-level dungeon, it's hard to estimate the true extent of the disaster. He declares there is only one way to stop it: to exterminate every single monster that has escaped. The weight of his words settles upon the room. King Barbaros' expression hardens, while Mama Cha voices her disbelief and Jonathan clicks his tongue in frustration. Geist's gaze remains fixed on the king, awaiting his decision. The king does not hesitate. He commands Minister Bonnet to prepare the troops, who acknowledges at once. He then turns to Geist, ordering him to request assistance from the adventurers' guilds of neighboring nations. Geist confirms he will act immediately. He slams his fist down, emphasizing the gravity of the situation. He declares that they face a crisis unlike any before, and if they fail to unite, the country is done for. Following the king's dire proclamation, Guildmaster Geist turns his grim gaze towards the assembled heroes, stating that now, they can only rely on the adventurers. His words fall upon the S-rank adventurers. Heist listens with a hardened, unreadable expression, while Sasha stands beside him, her face a mask of calm composure. The other clan leaders begin to murmur amongst themselves. Mama Cha, the fighting mother, notes that they don't even know how large the catastrophe will be. Jonathan, the barbarian clan master, agrees, adding that tighter coordination between the clans will be necessary. Chaos, the Judgment Clan master, stammers that everyone must work together and prepare. Chaos then turns to Tenna, proposing a seemingly simple solution. Why not just enter the dungeon and defeat the boss on the lowest floor beforehand? Tenna is aghast, declaring it impossible. He presses her, asking how she could know since she hasn't even tried. He continues his questioning, pointing out that she only recently reached S-rank, before turning his attention to a chart detailing the monster rankings within the dungeon. Before Chaos can finish his thought, Heist abruptly turns and walks away. Tenna calls out, asking where he is going. Without looking back, Heist states that anyone trying that plan would just become monster food. He adds that if the one in black has questions, he'll gladly answer them, then continues his exit. His blunt departure draws reactions. Guildmaster Geist remarks that Heist's rank has jumped 2 whole levels. Princess Muane puffs her cheeks, muttering that he's as rude as ever. King Barbaros, however, lets out a laugh, remarking that the boy is as interesting as always. As he leaves, Sasha watches him go, her expression unreadable as she quietly speaks his name. 10 days pass after the counter-stampede meeting. In the capital, newspapers are distributed, publicizing the news of the impending threat to the entire kingdom. In the wake of the public announcement, the Adventurers Guild takes immediate action, posting a notice that all requests have been suspended. This measure is taken as official word spreads, confirming that further investigations pinpoint the stampede's arrival to within the next couple of days. The source of the threat, a dark dungeon entrance, looms ominously. In response to the crisis, King Barbaros addresses his royal knights from a castle balcony, mobilizing the kingdom's primary military force. As the military prepares for war, the general populace begins a mass exodus, with families fleeing the royal capital, carrying what little they can. Amidst the panicked evacuation, some of the realm's strongest defenders remain. S-rank adventurers, including Chaos, Jonathan, and Mama Cha, stand their ground, organizing the city's defense. From the relative safety of the guild hall, Guildmaster Geist and his staff observe the chaotic preparations, their expressions heavy with concern. Elsewhere, Sasha, the sacred leader, gazes out with unwavering determination, her mind set on the coming battle. The fateful day arrives, the day of the stampede. On this very day, while most are fleeing or fighting, Heist is found in a quiet shop. The elderly shopkeeper, surprised to see a customer, questions him, asking why he isn't evacuating the royal capital with everyone else. He pauses, looking at the young man before him, a silent understanding or perhaps curiosity passing over his features as he awaits an answer. The old shopkeeper explains his presence in the capital. He was away purchasing the inn when disaster struck his home, a tragedy he witnessed firsthand. It was his daughter and her husband's dream, he recounts, to open an inn right here in this city. He holds up a framed photograph of a smiling young family, his daughter, son-in-law, and grandchild. His home village, he continues, vanished without a trace. The memory is a desolate, empty landscape. Not a soul remained. Not his son-in-law, nor his grandchild. Tears welling in his eyes, the man declares that as the sole survivor, he is bound to protect his daughter's dream, this very inn, until the end. He sets the photograph down with resolve. Heist listens silently, his gaze fixed forward. He then places a stack of coins on the counter, stating it is for that night's stay. The innkeeper points out that he has already paid for breakfast, but Heist's intent is clear. Meanwhile, on the ramparts of the royal capital, a grim report arrives. An estimated 70,000 monsters have been sighted just outside the walls. The news spreads panic. Guildmaster Geist bellows that the horde is on a rampage, headed for the capital to destroy their land and homes. Beside him, Sasha steels herself, declaring that they must hold the line, no matter what. The reality is far worse. A scout screams a correction from the front. The number isn't 70,000, but 100,000, and they're only 5 kilometers away. The defenders, including Sasha and Geist, stare in utter disbelief and horror. As chaos erupts on the wall, a single name is shouted, Heist. In that moment, he steps out from the inn, a dark, powerful aura beginning to swirl around him as he walks in. Amidst the chaos of the monster horde, Heist stands firm. Dark energy coalesces around him, forming a strange, four-barreled weapon in his grasp. As a goblin-like creature lunges, he calmly announces, let's go. He immediately unleashes the weapon's power. For massive projectiles launch forward, tearing through the air and slamming into the horde with devastating force, culminating in a massive explosion that obliterates the front line. Before the smoke clears, the rocket launcher dissolves and is replaced by an even more formidable weapon, a massive, multi-barreled Gatling gun. With a determined glare, Heist warns the remaining monsters, get ready for this. The Gatling gun roars to life, spitting a continuous stream of projectiles. The advancing monsters scream in agony as the overwhelming firepower tears them to shreds. Watching from a safe distance, Reynolds expresses his astonishment at the display, remarking on its incredible firepower. Sasha, her eyes wide with surprise, wonders aloud if this is Heist's true ability. Below them, Guildmaster Geist rallies his forces, shouting for the long-range attackers to press their advantage now. From a high vantage point, the horned demon, Crane, observes the battle with a smirk. He notes that the fight has begun, then addresses Sasha from afar, calling her Missy and warning her that she had better not die to the monsters before he gets the chance to kill her himself. His gaze shifts back to Heist's position on the battlefield. He had expected a messier, more chaotic fight. He squints, trying to comprehend the weapon Heist is wielding. But say, what kind of weapon is that, he wonders. His expression sours into a scowl. He realizes that Heist's unexpected intervention is disrupting his plans, muttering that the kid is ruining things. On the ground, Guildmaster Geist continues to direct the battle, ordering the forward troops to get ready. He declares that they are counting on them as Sasha, Reynolds, Piazzala, and Tycoon stand prepared to advance into the fray. Responding to the call, the S-Class adventurer Mamacha leaps into action. With a powerful cry, she smashes her fist straight through a monster's torso, demonstrating her own formidable strength as she clears a path through the enemy ranks. The fighting mother, Mamacha, roars, activating her enlargement ability as she shouts encouragement to the other adventurers, telling them to hang in there. Her amplified power sends a grotesque, one-eyed monster reeling back with a cry of agony, as a nearby civilian watches the brutal combat with wide, terrified eyes. Meanwhile, other powerful fighters hold the line. Jonathan of the Barbarian clan unleashes his vibration ability, while Chaos of the Judgment clan smirks, noting their competence before preparing his own poison ability. Away from the main horde, Heist confronts the true source of the attack. The demon, Crane, seems surprised that Heist dodged his assault. Heist demands to know who he is, and Crane calmly reveals that he is the one who started the monster stampede. He studies Heist's appearance, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. Crane realizes Heist is the demon Sasha had reported and pointedly asks if he knows that woman. When Heist doesn't answer, Crane continues, explaining that he plans to destroy everything Sasha cares about. He states that Heist is getting in the way of that goal, and now, knowing he has a connection to her, Crane has decided to personally remove him. With his intentions clear, Crane lunges forward to strike. Heist's eyes widen in alarm as the demon's hand darts toward him with incredible speed. From a distance, Sasha spots the confrontation and recognizes the attacker. As a massive explosion erupts in the forest behind them, she urgently tells Reynolds that they must go after that demon. Before they can act, the ground begins to tremble violently. Sasha realizes they cannot pursue under these conditions. The other adventurers cry out in confusion, wondering about the source of the shaking until someone shouts for them to look. A deafening roar fills the air as a colossal, shadowy behemoth erupts from the earth, shattering the ground. Reynolds screams Sasha's name in terror as the new, overwhelming threat emerges before them. The colossal behemoth's form dominates the landscape, its sheer size a terrifying new reality. From its shadow, Sasha glances back toward the distant confrontation between Heiss and the demon crane, her expression hardening. Her attention snaps back to the more immediate threat. As Reynolds shouts that they must take out the giant turtle-like monster, Sasha agrees, deciding to leave the other matter to Heiss. Nearby, Crane taunts Heiss, noting with amusement that his comrades have seemingly abandoned him. In response to the demon's goading, Heiss unleashes a volley of projectiles. Crane, however, seems unimpressed, casually sidestepping the incoming fire. Heiss grits his teeth, questioning how this is possible. He knows his wind powers are supposed to be exceptionally strong in open areas like this. The projectiles detonate harmlessly in the space Crane just occupied. He laughs, declaring the attack utterly useless as he continues to effortlessly evade the barrage, leaving Heiss firing into empty air. As the assault continues, Crane summons a powerful whirlwind around himself, a vortex of air that deflects all incoming shots. Heiss watches, realizing with dawning frustration that Crane's strange ability is a perfect counter to his own. He remains untouchable within a gale, mocking Heiss' efforts. Crane boasts that firepower is meaningless if it cannot land a single hit and challenges Heiss, asking what he plans to do now. The relentless wind barrier repels every shot. Heiss realizes with growing certainty that at this rate, the fight will never end. He knows he must find a way to overcome the wind if he is to stand any chance. Just as his frustration peaks, a hand rests gently on his shoulder. Sasha has appeared behind him, her voice calm as she tells him to let her take care of it. She instructs him to simply keep his gun steady, just as he always does. A confident, almost predatory smile plays on her lips, hinting at a plan already in motion. Her words seem to steady him, his expression shifting to one of quiet determination. As he focuses, a faint energy begins to crackle around his gloved hand, a subtle power awakening. He stands his ground, weapon raised, as the demon Crane taunts him. Crane declares that as long as his wind shield is active, nothing Heiss can do on his own will ever work. Before he can respond, an elven woman, Quirce, suddenly appears at his side. She grabs his arm and weapon, channeling her own wind magic to combine with his attack. The resulting vortex of power surges forward, stunning Crane, who wonders where she came from and how they're using wind magic to counter his own. Their combined blast smashes through Crane's defenses. The demon reels back in shock, unable to comprehend how his power could be cancelled out by what he dismisses as mere humans. He is thrown violently backward, his form disappearing into the distance as the powerful gust overwhelms him. With the immediate threat gone, Heiss turns to his unexpected ally, admitting she saved him. Quirce smiles brightly, suggesting that as thanks, he can treat her to tea later. She continues cheerfully as they walk through the debris, mentioning a great restaurant she found. Heiss looks at her with exasperation, asking if eating is all she thinks about. His annoyance vanishes in an instant, replaced by a look of sudden, dawning horror. He whirls around, shouting Sasha's name with panicked urgency, startling Quirce. His cry echoes unanswered. Elsewhere on the ravaged battlefield, Sasha stands alone, panting with exhaustion. Before her lies the massive, crumbling corpse of the shadowy behemoth, now utterly defeated. An urgent alert spreads across the battlefield. A new, powerful stampede monster has appeared, identified as the King Turtle, with a staggering estimated rank of SS+. The colossal, rock-plated beast erupts from the ground, its presence marking a dire turning point in the fight. The adventurers are urged to hang on. In response, Sasha leaps forward, sword held high. She brings her blade down upon the King Turtle's massive body, but the impact is immense, sending a shockwave through her as she lets out a grunt of exertion. From a distance, Quirce watches with a worried expression. She lands, wincing. Her attack was useless. The creature's hide is so tough that her sword simply bounced off its surface. The deflected blow sends her stumbling backward. Seeing this, Reynolds shouts from across the battlefield, asking if she's all right. Sasha quickly insists that she's fine, though the strain is evident. As she tries to recover, Crane observes that since the King Turtle's arrival, the adventurers have been consistently pushed back. If the line breaks, the monsters will swarm the city. At that moment, Reynolds spots a goblin lunging at Sasha's exposed back and screams a warning, but it's too late. She cries out as she's struck down. She collapses to the dirt, wounded and vulnerable as goblins close in. Reynolds curses, shouting that he's coming to help her right now. He reaches her side in an instant, driving his fist into a goblin's face with brutal force. He screams her name, creating a brief opening. His rescue, however, leaves him surrounded. Worse, the King Turtle begins to gather a blinding sphere of energy in its maw. Reynolds realizes the situation is hopeless. He needs to get to Sasha, but he knows it's too late. With a deafening roar, the King Turtle unleashes the energy as a massive, destructive beam. Reynolds can only scream Sasha's name in despair. Lying on the ground, Sasha looks up at the approaching annihilation and resigns herself to her fate, thinking this is the end. In the final moment, a figure materializes, standing as a shield before her. It is Heiss, but he is transformed, clad in a dark, high-collared coat with a strange crystalline pattern obscuring his left eye. As he silently faces the blast, Sasha can only stare up at him in utter disbelief. He stands firm, his face streaked with grime and a strange, dotted patch covering his left eye. From behind him, Sasha cries out his name in utter disbelief. The transformed young man remains a silent guardian, standing between the kneeling Sasha and the dissipating energy of the monster's attack. Her gaze travels up his form, her expression a mixture of shock and confusion as his tattered cloak flutters. Scrambling to her feet with Persea's help, Sasha grabs the front of his tunic, her voice trembling as she demands to know why he protected her, crying out that he didn't have to do it. He looks down at her, his visible eye dark and unreadable, and tells her not to ask. He confesses that his body simply moved on its own, an instinct he couldn't control. Her eyes widen at his words, a flicker of some deep, unspoken emotion passing across her face. She presses on, her voice cracking as she reminds him of their shared dream. Their promise to build the best adventurer team together. The memory of how she cast him aside surfaces, and she points out the contradiction. Despite her pushing him away, he is still here, carrying their dream and pushing her forward. His attention shifts back to the colossal king turtle looming over the forest. He admits that in his current state, he has no way to defeat the monster, but then turns his head slightly and assures her, "You'll be fine." His words trigger a vivid memory. She sees herself as a child, confidently telling a much weaker, younger Heiss to finish off a simple slime. He had replied then that there was no way he could do it. The parallel between his past weakness and his current, impossible declaration leaves her stunned. She finally understood. A memory surfaced of younger Heiss, his face bright with a smile, cheering her on. He had always believed in her. His present self, battered but resolute, held that same unwavering faith. The realization struck her, solidifying into a powerful resolve. This newfound clarity swept away her hesitation. She questioned her own prior doubts, her spirit reignited by his trust. She turned to face the overwhelming odds, promising to show him her true fighting spirit. With a grateful smile directed at Heiss, she thanked him. "I'll be going," she declared, her voice firm. As she spoke, her sword began to radiate a brilliant golden light. She then launched herself into the fray. In a flash of golden light and steel, she carved through the horde of smaller monsters, dispatching several in a single, fluid motion. Reynold could only stare, astonished at how many she cut down in an instant. He voiced his astonishment, questioning if this sudden surge in strength was what is known as an awakening. Beside him, Mama Cha confirmed his suspicion, agreeing that Sasha had definitely grown stronger all of a sudden. From nearby, Jonathan, the barbarian clan master, offered an explanation. He stated that in extremely rare cases, when an individual overcomes a profound mental crisis, their latent abilities can suddenly become much stronger. He admitted that he had only ever heard rumors of such awakenings. Witnessing Sasha's onslaught firsthand, however, proved to him that it was actually possible. Her empowered golden sword hummed with energy as she stood alone, a solitary figure of light against the colossal, dark form of the king turtle. In response to her challenge, the gargantuan beast let out a deafening roar. It lunged forward, unleashing a devastating attack from its massive jaws, the Sky Fawn. Unflinching, she met the attack head-on. With a furious cry to bring it on, she vowed that not a single monster would get past her blade. Heiss' consciousness slowly returns, his vision blurry as he stirs from the darkness that followed the battle. His eyes flutter open to an unfamiliar ceiling. He realizes he is in a bed at an inn. A voice from nearby calls out, confirming he is finally awake. The voice belongs to Persea, who greets him with a cheerful morning. She explains that she carried him there with the help of spirits and administered first aid. When Heiss asks about the stampede, she assures him it was handled without any problems. His immediate concern, however, is for someone else. He asks what happened to Sasha. Persea's cheerful demeanor fades slightly as she prepares to answer, acknowledging his question about her. Her hesitation is telling. Both Persea and Sasha, who is standing nearby, share a look of concern. Sensing the need for privacy, Persea announces she will fetch some water, noting that Heiss just woke up. She exits the room, leaving Sasha alone with him. Now alone, Sasha asks Heiss about his injuries. He sits by the window and admits that it hurts a bit, but is nothing serious. He sees her standing there, waiting. Her gaze falls, her expression filled with remorse. With her eyes closed tightly, she offers a heartfelt apology. He looks at her, confused. Sasha explains that her ability awakened, implying she feels responsible for what happened to him. Heiss begins to protest, insisting that it was something she decided to do herself and that the fault does not lie with her. He places a reassuring hand on her head, a gentle smile on his bandaged face. He tells her that it's a good thing, as her awakening puts her one step closer to achieving her dream. Sasha is left speechless, looking up at him. Her expression earnest, she acknowledges the suddenness of her request, but makes her plea clear. She wants Heiss to rejoin her party, Sacred. Before he can respond, Priscilla storms into the room, vehemently declaring that he can't. She proclaims that Heiss is now a part of her team, leaving Sasha stunned. Recovering from her shock, Sasha retorts, questioning what Priscilla means and reminding her that Heiss was originally a member of her party. Priscilla's gaze hardens as she bluntly points out that Sasha was the one who kicked him out. The tension between them crackles, leaving Heiss caught in the crossfire. Overwhelmed by their argument, he suddenly declares that he doesn't need a team at all. He announces his intention to keep going solo, much to Sasha's disbelief. Priscilla immediately rounds on Sasha, accusing her of being the cause of this entire situation. She demands to know what Sasha's connection to Heiss even is, then smugly declares that she and Heiss are sworn and fated to be together, leaving Sasha utterly flabbergasted. Having slipped away from the room, he listens to the escalating commotion from a distance, finding the entire affair simply noisy. He continues to observe, a thoughtful expression on his face as a realization begins to form. Gazing out the window, he concludes his thought with a small, private smile. Perhaps, he muses, being fought over like this isn't so bad once in a while. His moment of peace is shattered as both Sasha and Priscilla appear at the window, demanding to know who he will team up with. From a distance, he shouts back his unwavering decision. He is going so. 6 months after the great monster stampede, a sense of normalcy has slowly begun to return to the city as citizens once again fill the streets. At the headquarters of Clan Sacred, Sasha apologizes to the members of the adventurer team, 1000, for summoning them on short notice. The team's leader, Roland, dismisses her apology, saying it's nothing. His attention is immediately captured by a quest poster on the counter. It is a C-rank request for the subjugation of a king ogre. Sasha explains that since they are already C-rank adventurers, she believes they can handle it. When she asks if he thinks he can do it, Roland accepts with unwavering confidence, promising to take care of it. The confidence from before has vanished. Out in the field, a panting Roland realizes the direness of their situation. The quest was not for 1 king ogre, but 3. He curses, knowing his team is completely exhausted and unable to fight. The thought that he must face 3 king ogres alone fills him with despair. As one of the beasts lunges, he sees it as his end. Before the ogre's attack can connect, a sudden, violent torrent of dark energy erupts, obliterating the monsters in an instant. From the chaos emerges Heiss, who single-handedly saved the party. He approaches the stunned adventurers, asking if they are all right and recognizing them as part of Sasha's group. A grateful Roland rushes to thank him, but Heiss seems more focused on their safety. Surveying the remains of the defeated ogres, Mad and Tenna express their amazement at how quickly Heiss dealt with them all, remarking that such power is expected of an S-rank adventurer. Roland then reveals to his team that Heiss is aiming to become the strongest adventurer there is. This declaration sparks immediate curiosity from the entire group, who all eagerly ask Heiss for the reason why, leaving him momentarily speechless. He states his ultimate goal plainly: to conquer the 6 forbidden labyrinths. The members of Team 1000 stare, utterly shocked by the sheer scale of his ambition. The 6 forbidden labyrinths are known as the highest-ranking dungeons in the world. Among them are the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth, a vast complex buried deep beneath the ground, and the Dilly Roman's Great Salt Lake, a place that hosts its own unique and dangerous ecosystem. Other legendary locations include the Magnetic Forest, where mysterious force confounds the senses, the Drina Dew Star Floating Castle, which appeared in the sky in ages past, Mount Necrophantasia, a mountain range said to exist within the demon realm, and finally, God's Garden, a place whose existence is only mentioned in myths. Tenna asks which one Heiss plans to challenge. Roland clarifies that one cannot simply attempt them without permission from the nations involved. He explains that the only one with a known location is the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth in the desert kingdom of Dazara. A grim rumor surrounds these places. Those who enter are never seen again. Faced with this reality, Heiss admits that the best he can do for now is to keep improving his skills by taking on whatever requests come his way, acknowledging that achieving his goal could take an unknown amount of time. As thanks for saving them, Roland and Tenna invite him for a meal, eager to learn more about him. However, Heiss politely declines, explaining that he must return to the royal capital. He apologizes and suggests another time, leaving the team looking disappointed. He arrives late at a grand royal hall, where King Barbaros greets him with wry amusement, noting that he certainly took his time. Heiss offers his apologies, internally blaming the delay on his encounter with Team 1000. The king dismisses it, stating he dislikes rushing but wants to proceed, and remarks that Heiss is only the 2nd person to ever be late to an appointment with him. Standing before the throne, Heiss listens as the king makes a formal request. He is to conquer one of the 6 forbidden labyrinths, the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth. The young adventurer is stunned into silence. His mind reels with the suddenness of the command. He can hardly believe it. He is being tasked to take on a forbidden labyrinth already. The king justifies his decision, stating that in light of Heiss' recent, significant contributions during the monster stampede, he has been deemed worthy of the challenge. Heiss stands frozen, the weight of the royal decree settling upon him. He stood before King Barbaros, who posed the monumental question. Would he take on this task? Without hesitation, his gloved hand clenched into a fist. He would humbly accept. The king then provided instructions. A man named Bargain would have all the details. For matters concerning the Great Labyrinth, Heiss was to seek out the clan master of the Stone Sovereign in the kingdom of Dazara. Heiss acknowledged his understanding. As the king prayed for his safe return with good news, an attendant presented a letter which would point him in the right direction. With his mission clear, he turned and departed from the throne room, his footsteps echoing on the stone floor. Walking through a sunlit palace corridor, he was stopped by Priscilla. She correctly deduced he had been listening in and, with a knowing smile, confirmed her suspicion that he was going to take on the 6 forbidden labyrinths. He warned her not to follow him this time, stating that the path ahead would be dangerous. Priscilla conceded, but noted that one can never truly know what might happen. She offered a reassuring smile, promising not to sneak up on him. He turned his head, revealing a fresh bandage covering his left eye and cheek. He agreed, admitting that in his current state, having only recently achieved A rank, he would probably just be a burden to her. Priscilla then shared a crucial piece of intelligence. She informed him that Sasha and her friends were planning to challenge the Dilly Roman's Great Salt Lake, another of the forbidden labyrinths, stating she just thought he should know. She calls out to him as he walks away through the castle gates, causing him to stop and turn back. He offers a simple word of thanks for her earlier warning. With a bright smile, she asks what he plans to do now, requesting that he tell her all about his journey when he returns. He readily agrees to her proposal. Her expression softens as she suggests they could share his stories over some tea, promising to tell him everything in return. Her final words are a heartfelt plea for him to stay safe. With that, Heiss turns and departs, walking away from the grand city and toward his next destination. His journey leads him to the arid expanse of the desert nation of Dazara. Accompanied by the king's elderly attendant, he walks through a bustling city carved from sandstone and rock. They arrive at an office where an elven receptionist greets them. She confirms she has received the request from the king of Highbelk for Heiss to meet Clan Master Bargain, and asks for a moment to verify everything. While he waits, Heiss considers his mission to conquer the Great Labyrinth. He feels more prepared this time, believing that with more weapons in his arsenal compared to before the stampede, things should go smoothly as long as he avoids any mistakes. His thoughts are shattered by a booming voice asking if he is the one daring to challenge the 6 forbidden labyrinths. A towering, muscular man looms over him. Heiss looks up and confirms the man's identity, asking if he is Bargain, to which the man affirms. The clan master is immediately dismissive, telling Heiss to leave. Heiss protests, stating he has a request from the king to take on the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth and needs information. Bargain retorts that it's not his problem, and he has no obligation to help a brat he can't allow into the labyrinths. He continues, noting that King Barbaros said he was sending an S rank who stopped the stampede, but all he sees is just some kid. He scoffs, declaring there's no way such a youth could succeed. As a receptionist watches nervously, Heiss stands silent, his hand clenching into a fist. He stood his ground as the massive clan master turned his back, his voice booming with the weight of experience. Bargain declared that his warning came from someone who had personally challenged the forbidden labyrinths. Instead of being intimidated, a smirk spread across his face. He scoffed internally at the thought that the highly respected 4 great clan masters were just a bunch of cowards who ran away from the great labyrinths. The accusation hung in the air, striking Bargain with the force of a physical blow. The clan master's face contorted in fury, while Priscilla, standing nearby, looked on in utter disbelief, gasping at what Heiss had just said. Having delivered his insult, the young adventurer turned to walk away, dismissing the enraged master. He declared there was no point in listening to a coward. He paused, glancing back with a sharp, determined expression. "You're right," he stated coolly. "I should head back." His calculated dismissal struck a nerve. Priscilla's mind went blank with shock, her face frozen in a silent, wide-eyed stare. Beside her, Bargain began to tremble, his entire body shaking with uncontrollable rage as he uttered a single, menacing word. "You!" The clan master's fury erupted. With a roar of "little punk," he slammed his fist into the stone floor, shattering the ground in a violent explosion of power that sent debris. Heiss leaps backward, grunting as he narrowly dodges a powerful strike that shatters the ground beneath him. The large, bearded craftsman, Bargain, watches with interest, noting aloud that Heiss managed to avoid the blow. Unfazed, Bargain hefts a massive hammer over his head, his powerful frame readying for another assault. "How about this then?" he bellows, preparing to bring the weapon down upon the young man. Heiss throws himself clear just as the hammer crashes down, obliterating the ground where he just stood. Amidst the flying dust and debris, Bargain offers a compliment. "Not bad, kid." Heiss, however, looks thoroughly annoyed by the relentless test. He lands and immediately aims a cylindrical weapon at the craftsman. "Stop messing with me," he shouts, firing a projectile in an attempt to force an end to the confrontation. Instead of dodging, Bargain simply raises his hands, and a flash of energy erupts, deflecting the shot. A small, round object clatters harmlessly to the ground as Heiss watches, bewildered and letting out a breath of confused relief. His reaction is met by a sudden, booming laugh from Bargain. The sheer volume of the laughter makes Heiss flinch in surprise. The tension of the fight dissipates. Bargain remarks how interesting it is to meet someone else who uses the same type of weapons as a person named Nobunaga. The name piques Heiss' curiosity, and he repeats it under his breath. As he considers the name, Priscilla appears at his side. She asks if they're discussing the same Nobunaga that the elven hero, Ibis, loves. Seeing Priscilla, Bargain's eyes widen in realization. "Oh, so you know that Nobunaga, huh?" he exclaims. Heiss confirms that he at least recognizes the name. Bargain lets out another hearty laugh. I see. He chuckles, then asks for the boy's name again. Heiss, the young man replies. The craftsman acknowledges him warmly. Well then, Heiss. He stands before the massive craftsman, Bargain, who extend an invitation. The large man offers to tell Heiss all he wants to know about the Great Labyrinth, if he will just come with him. Caught off guard by the sudden shift in demeanor, he can only wonder what is going on. Bargain leads him into a room, identified as the clan master's office for the Stone Sovereign clan, and gestures for him to have a seat. The two sit opposite one another at a large, sturdy wooden table. Seeking clarification, Heiss asks if Bargain was on the same team as Nobunaga. The craftsman confirms it, explaining that not only was he on the team, but so was Ibis, now the clan master of Yggdrasil, along with the masters of the other four major clans. He elaborates that they were all originally part of the same team as Nobunaga, united under a shared, intricate emblem. Bargain continues, noting that while Ibis, or Priscilla, as Heiss knows her, may seem a certain way now, she used to follow Nobunaga around constantly. A memory surfaces of a younger Priscilla trailing happily behind a man named Nobunaga. Priscilla's voice, filled with warmth, adds that Nobunaga was more than just a teammate. He was a friend. Bargain brings the conversation back to the present, explaining that he couldn't simply ignore someone who uses the same type of weapon as his good friend. Leaning forward with intensity, the craftsman clarifies his earlier actions. He states that his reluctance to let Heiss enter the Great Labyrinth wasn't out of rudeness or some simple test. His expression is grave as he speaks Heiss' name, a heavy implication hanging in the air. As he stood firm, Bargain presented grim evidence of the labyrinth's dangers, pointing to his old wounds. He explained that the monsters within were on a completely different level, and that his entire team had perished there, leaving him as the sole survivor. He then asked if, despite hearing all that, Heiss still intended to go. The young man remained silent, his gaze unwavering. In that silence, Heiss clenched his fist. He thought of his friends, who had grown stronger since the recent stampede and were now tackling one of the 6 great labyrinths. He couldn't fall behind. Not after promising Priscilla he would become the strongest. His resolve hardening, he looked Bargain in the eye and declared that this was precisely why he had to go, in order to become the strongest. Bargain reacted with exasperation, shouting that Heiss was just like Nobunaga, completely unwilling to listen to others. But seeing the absolute determination in Heiss' eyes, he sighed, his posture softening. Alrighty, he conceded, I'll tell you everything I know about the Great Labyrinth then. He began by unrolling a large scroll, reiterating that the monsters inside were nothing like what Heiss had encountered. Any adventurer who let their guard down, assuming it was a standard dungeon, would die the moment they entered. He went on to explain that even if one managed to get inside, they would soon realize why the Great Delmadome Labyrinth was unique. It was like another world, a desolate landscape littered with strange iron boxes and other unknown objects. He then produced a strange artifact. Heiss asked if this was one of the iron boxes he was talking about. Bargain confirmed it was, adding that when he had shown it to Nobunaga, the man had identified it as something from his own world. Heiss stared at the object, a firearm, inscribed with the number 1873. A question formed in his mind. Why were things from Nobunaga's world found inside the Great Labyrinth? He could only wonder if there was some kind of connection. He asks if Nobunaga-san was also unaware of these circumstances. Bargain confirms that, based on his records, it seemed Nobunaga had no idea either. With that, Bargain concludes that this is the extent of his knowledge. Heiss internalizes this, realizing that if he clears the other forbidden labyrinths, he might not only learn more about his own abilities, but also discover other items from different worlds. As he considers this possibility, Bargain's voice cuts through his thoughts. The older man's hand rests heavily on his research papers, as he admits he knows how pathetic it is, this small amount of information gained at the cost of his friends' lives. He continues, his gaze averted, dismissing himself as nothing more than a coward who ran away and insisting that what he has shared is not it. Heiss, however, sees it differently. He looks at the detailed information spread before him, resolving that he cannot let the sacrifice of Bargain's comrades be in vain. With this new understanding, he turns to the clan master and bows his head slightly. He apologizes for his earlier words, taking back his accusation that Bargain was a coward. Surprised, Bargain simply asks what he means. In response, Bargain places a firm hand on the young man's shoulder. He tells Heiss that it's fine and that a young man like him has no need to be so considerate. Accepting the gesture, Heiss turns to depart, thanking him for the advice. As he begins to walk away, Bargain calls out his name, causing him a pause. Heist turns back with a confident smile, declaring with absolute certainty that he will clear the Delmadrome labyrinth. His declaration hangs in the air for only a moment before the door is thrust open and a voice urgently calls out, interrupting them. The young woman who had just burst in rushes past Heist, calling out an apology for being late. She explains to Bargain that she got carried away in a sparring match, which caused her delay. The craftsman simply acknowledges her presence, stating, "You're here." Her attention then snaps to Heist. With boundless energy, she asks if he is the other S-rank adventurer, Hijiri. Before he can respond, she beams and confirms that she herself is Hijiri. Confused, Heist wonders who this other one is. Suddenly, her eyes widen in recognition. She gets right in his face, startling him as she shouts, "Aren't you Heist?" She pulls back slightly, sizing him up. She murmurs that he looks strong, but her expression is inquisitive as she seems to wonder what kind of person he is. As she observes him, Bargain holds up a letter, explaining that King Barbaros' instructions state that Heist and another S-rank adventurer are to conquer the labyrinth together. He then asks Heist if he was paying any attention to this. The revelation hits Heist with full force. He lets out a cry of pure shock, his jaw agape, while Hijiri stands beside him with a serene, confident smile. Bargain comments that while the king's ways haven't changed, the request is official. Unaware of this, Heist shouts that he hadn't heard anything about it at all. His disbelief turns to indignation. He calls Hijiri rude and protests that just because it's an official request doesn't mean he has to team up with some random weirdo. In response, Hijiri thrusts her adventurer certification forward. "Hold on," she declares. "I'm even certified, see?" The card prominently displays a large S, proving her rank. Despite her presenting the S-rank certification, Heist remained visibly agitated. Clan Master Bargain, seeing his subordinate's stubbornness, bluntly told him to give it up. But Heist, sweating with frustration, could only stare ahead, his mind reeling with the single, unbelievable thought that this girl was truly an S-rank adventurer. His internal monologue was shattered as the girl herself leaned in close, a brilliant, wide-eyed smile on her face. She loudly reintroduced herself as Hijiri and, extending a gloved hand, cheerfully declared that it was nice to be working with him. Heist could only stare back, his expression frozen in disbelief. A boisterous young woman with long, light hair introduces herself to Heist as Hijiri. Nearby, Bargain asks if she is the famed adamantite fist Hijiri of Oolong. Confirming her identity, Hijiri boasts of conquering 7 high-rated dungeons and expresses disbelief that Heist might not have heard of her. In response, Heist bluntly states that he knows nothing about her or Oolong, leaving Hijiri utterly aghast. Bargain then explains to Heist that Oolong is a Western country known for its martial arts and populated by hot-headed people who are better at fighting than thinking. She cheerfully adds that Oolong is her hometown, but Heist remains dismissive, questioning the description of its people. He declares that he doesn't do teamwork and plans to enter the labyrinth alone, seeing them as merely temporary associates. Hearing his intention to go solo, Hijiri's demeanor shifts. She looks at him intently and insists that his plan is unacceptable, declaring that she needs his help to clear the labyrinth. Heist is startled by her sudden intensity. The scene flashes back to King Barbaros in his throne room, where he formally issues his command. He wants Hijiri to clear the Delmadrome Great Labyrinth together with Heist. As Bargain processes the king's order, King Barbaros shifts the topic to the reward. This prompts Hijiri to ask if they're discussing the same Heist from the recent monster stampede. Following her question, Hijiri makes a bold request. She wants permission to fight against Heist. King Barbaros notes that duels are normally forbidden, recalling a past incident where a town was partially destroyed by such a conflict. However, intrigued, he grants his permission, much to Hijiri's delight. Heist shouts in protest at the decision, exclaiming that this is exactly the kind of problem he wanted to avoid by going alone. Unfazed, Hijiri confidently tells him to leave everything to her. Later, Heist fumes internally, grumbling about the damned old man, King Barbaros, and his tendency to do whatever he pleases. Bargain interrupts his brooding with a heavy pat on the shoulder, repeating his earlier sentiment. He tells Heist that it truly seems King Barbaros has taken a liking to him, causing Heist to flinch. He stood impassively as Hijiri, perched atop a small mound with a flag marking her as number 1, laid out her grand ambition. She wanted to defeat all the strong people in the world to become the strongest, and she declared that after they cleared the Great Labyrinth, she wanted a duel with him. Her eyes bored into his, wide with manic excitement as she asked him directly, "You're strong, aren't you?" He, in turn, looked on with a weary expression, a stark contrast to her fiery determination. Without a word, he turned and began to walk away, his footsteps echoing his disinterest. As he continued on, Hijiri trailed closely behind. He reiterated his stance, stating that he would be undertaking the task alone and was passing on her challenge. His blunt refusal left Hijiri momentarily stunned. "I don't want to duel you," he stated plainly. As they stood at the town's edge, the craftsman Bargain called out for them to wait, but Heist simply offered his thanks and promised to visit again before heading home. From his workshop, Bargain watched the 2 adventurers depart, quietly hoping for their safe return. Meanwhile, in a nearby tavern, a large order was being placed. 2 drinks, a large bear steak, a boar cream stew, and a tomato and squid ink pasta. The source of the massive order was Hijiri, who continued to add fried red gesso meat and a chinshark stew to the list. Sitting across from her, an exasperated Heiss finally broke his silence, asking just how long she intended to keep following him. She turned on him, ignoring his question and accusing him of running away from her challenge. Though he denied it, she was relentless, declaring that he would have a duel with her once the great labyrinth was cleared. A wide, triumphant grin spread across her face as she laid out her simple, if flawed, logic. She had decided to follow him until the end, reasoning that this would count as them clearing the labyrinth together. This, in her mind, would fulfill the condition for their duel, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. She beams as the waitress arrives with their order, apologizing for the wait. While Hijiri proudly declares herself a genius, Heiss broods, internally lamenting that he is constantly surrounded by selfish people. First Persia, and now her. Her attention immediately shifts to the massive platter of food placed before them, and she marvels at how delicious it appears. Filled with excitement, she hoists her mug high into the air, loudly proposing a toast to Heiss and the formation of their team. He quietly raises his own mug in a half-hearted agreement. But as he begins to take a drink, she suddenly shouts for him to wait, her outburst causing him to flinch. He lowers his mug, flatly stating that he has no memory of agreeing to cooperate with her in any shape or form. Her cheerful demeanor falters, and she grumbles that he could at least have joined her for a simple toast. Shaking off her disappointment, she takes a hearty bite of food and chews thoughtfully before remarking that Heiss is far too stiff and needs to learn to relax. Her casual remark seems to strike a nerve. His expression darkens as he grips his mug and begins to address her seriously. He asks her if she truly comprehends the nature of their destination, explaining that the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth is far from being a typical high-difficulty dungeon. The very name evokes an image of a vast, desolate wasteland, a challenge worthy of its S-rank designation. He leans forward, his voice low and intense, stressing that this is no mere game. Even for S-rank adventurers like them, it is a place where they're putting their very lives on the line. He concludes his warning by acknowledging that he is fully aware he could die there. Unfazed, Hijiri simply looks at him and states that she knows all of this, reminding him that she is also an S-rank adventurer. With a slight sigh, she remarks on what a character he truly is. She met his gaze with unwavering intensity, declaring that she had prepared herself for the risks. She quickly added a clarification, however, admitting that while she was prepared, she certainly had no desire to die. Her serious demeanor then shattered into a boisterous, almost crazed excitement. She declared that she couldn't possibly die until she fought Heiss and was crowned the strongest, leaving him to wonder if she was being serious at all. She continued her rant, vowing to defeat all the strongest people and become the very strongest herself. Exasperated, Heiss finally asked why she was so dead set on fighting him. In response, Hijiri began to list his accomplishments, her voice filled with admiration. She recounted how news of his feats during the stampede had spread all the way to Oolong, how he single-handedly defeated over 1,000 monsters and even took down a demon. He listened to her recount his legendary battle, but his expression remained weary. Hijiri admitted that she was surprised. She explained her confusion, stating that she had assumed someone who wanted to become the strongest, who ran solo to become stronger than anyone else, just like her, wouldn't turn down a fight. Her words hung in the air as Heiss remained silent. She watched him for a moment before coming to her own conclusion, muttering that he must just find duels to be a pain. Her casual dismissal seemed to strike a nerve, causing him to look down in thought, questioning his own goal. Seeing his reaction, Hijiri leaned in and asked him directly, what was his true goal for being an adventurer? The question sent him spiraling into memory. He recalled his time with his former party, when their goal was to become the greatest and strongest team to help people. But as time passed, a gap in power widened between him and his friends, culminating in him being kicked off the team for being too weak. He recalls Sasha's smiling face, a memory that now fuels a different resolve. He had sworn to become the strongest through his own power, so that the weak would never again be ignored. This vow had been his driving force ever since he first met her, a sharp and defining memory that lingers in his mind. Pulled from his reverie, he finds Hijiri still pressing him for an answer. She insists, her curiosity piqued, but he dismisses her question, claiming it's nothing important. Her pestering is cut short by a violent reaction to the food she's eating. She cries out for water, overwhelmed by the unexpected spiciness, while Heiss watches her silently. As she scrambles for relief, he can only think to himself what a hopeless person she is. They proceed down a lively market street, crowded with people browsing the various stalls. The festive atmosphere makes Heiss question if a labyrinth could truly be nearby. His thoughts are interrupted when Hijiri, her previous discomfort forgotten, spots a food stall and eagerly orders 2 skewers from a vendor. He finds a skewer pushed into his hand. As Hijiri enjoys her own, he tells her to stop following him. She retorts that tourists come to see the Delmadrome Labyrinth because it's also an archaeological site. Accepting her explanation, he listens as she points the way toward the labyrinth. After quickly finishing her food, a sudden idea strikes her. She whirls around, a competitive fire in her eyes, and declares a race to the entrance. The prize for her victory, she proclaims, will be a match against him. Before he can protest, she is already sprinting away. She arrives first, her eyes widening in awe at the sight before them. Heiss, catching up, is similarly stunned. They stand before a colossal structure carved into a mountainside, its entrance a dark, gaping maw flanked by immense stone columns from which mist spills forth. Hijiri breathes that this is one of the 6 forbidden labyrinths, a fact that Heiss echoes as he stares up at the imposing facade, murmuring its name. The Great Delmadrome Labyrinth. Inside the Great Delmadrome Labyrinth, Persea gazes in awe at the colossal, ancient architecture. She exclaims at its immense size. Her excitement gets the better of her, and she begins to run ahead. Heiss, trailing behind, internally questions the wisdom of challenging a forbidden labyrinth with her. He calls out, telling her not to go on her own, but she cheerfully dismisses his concern, insisting it's fine. He follows, noting that the sandy ground makes walking difficult. He observes that while the interior currently resembles any old ruin, this is one of the hardest dungeons in existence, and they must remain vigilant. His caution is immediately justified. Persea lets out a sharp cry as the ground gives way beneath her. It's quicksand. Panicked, she struggles, crying out that she can't get free as she sinks rapidly. Reacting instantly, he curses the situation and lunges forward, stretching his hand out in a desperate attempt to reach her before she's completely submerged. Despite his haste, she vanishes completely beneath the shifting sands. Moments later, Heiss has managed to pull her from the trap. As she groggily comes to, she looks around in confusion, asking where she is. He calls her name, his voice tight with concern. Now on solid ground, they both turn their attention to the path ahead, a dark, overgrown passage. Heiss grimly remarks that it won't be an easy journey and that from this point on, there is no turning back. As he speaks, Persea looks at his back, a realization dawning on her. He could have simply left her behind, but instead, he went after her. Her thoughts prompt her to speak. She apologizes, admitting the incident was her fault. She then adds that since they were planning on descending into the labyrinth anyway, this outcome ultimately works in their favor. She looks over at Heiss with a wide, cheerful grin, remarking that he's a surprisingly good person. He can only respond with a flustered ha. Her enthusiasm unabated, she grabs onto him, shouting for them to press onward. He, caught off guard by her proximity, internally notes that she is far too close for comfort. As they venture deeper into the stone corridors, Heiss' attention is suddenly caught by something unusual amidst the rubble. He consults a book, noting that he saw this object written down somewhere. Peeking from behind a ruined pillar, Persea asks what it is they're looking at, a strange metallic object with 3 lenses lying in the sand. His book displays a diagram of the device, labeling it as a signal. He explains that's what it is, prompting Persea to marvel at how convenient such a thing must be. He continues to read, confirming what Bargain San had told him. The labyrinth contains traces of another world. As Persea questions him, he points out illustrations of foreign objects, identifying one as a car and another as a motorcycle. Their investigation is cut short by the sudden appearance of several screeching creatures. Heiss identifies them as black goblins, but before he can act, Persea steps forward. She asks to handle them herself as a warm-up, a way to repay him for saving her earlier. He reluctantly agrees. With his consent, she cracks her knuckles, a determined glint in her eye as she prepares for battle. Shouting a challenge, she unleashes her ability. Large chunks of rock and raw minerals are torn from the ground, hovering in the air around her. Heiss watches, stunned, as he realizes he is witnessing the power of Hijiri. This is the power known as Metal Master, one of the master-type abilities. It grants its wielder the power to freely manipulate the various minerals found within the earth. She settled into a low stance, her expression hardening with focus. She recalled her training, a unique martial art known as Granny's Wing-style Bajiquan, a technique she could now combine with her Metal Master skill. With that thought, she sprang into action. Shards of metal erupted from the labyrinth floor at her command, piercing and battering the attacking goblins. A hand of solid or formed from the ground, gripping one of the creatures tightly. A fierce grin spread across her face as she unleashed the full force of her assault, roaring for them to take it all. A massive wave of metallic projectiles surged forward, overwhelming the goblins in a storm of impacts. The dust settled to reveal the shattered remains of the goblins. Persea stood amidst the destruction, striking a proud pose and beaming with satisfaction as she asked aloud what he thought, exclaiming how amazing it was. Her moment of triumph was cut short as the ground began to tremble. All around her, more black goblins clawed their way to the surface, a new wave of enemies surrounding her completely. She let out a cry of dismay. The fresh horde lunged at her simultaneously, a flurry of dark bodies and crude blades descending upon her. Her confident expression vanished, replaced by one of shock as she braced for the onslaught. Watching from a safe distance, Heiss analyzed the situation calmly. He recognized the goblins' strategy, an initial small attack to lure their prey into a false sense of security, followed by a full-scale ambush. He knew not to let his guard down. He then stepped forward, telling Priscilla that he would take the lead, remarking that even a third-rate adventurer should have known about such a basic tactic. Despite his critique, he offered a compliment, admitting her performance wasn't bad. Priscilla could only manage a weary groan in response. Without another word, he dashed past her and met the charge of the closest goblin. His fist connected with a powerful impact, shattering the creature instantly. As the immediate threat was neutralized, Priscilla's attention was suddenly captured by something else entirely. A small, fluffy, white creature resembling a rabbit sat nearby. While Heiss wondered what she was looking at, Priscilla was captivated, exclaiming how cute it was, completely unaware of the creature's hidden, monstrously fanged true nature. 12 days pass. After a satisfying meal, a voice expresses thanks. The voice belongs to Priscilla, who is eating with great enthusiasm. With her mouth full, she exclaims how delicious Heiss' cooking is. She then adds that he is truly strong, noting that he uses all sorts of weapons she has never seen before. From their camp in the ruins, Heiss simply offers his thanks. She then eagerly asks if he will have a duel with her once they get out of the labyrinth. Heiss bluntly refuses, causing her to slump in comical despair. He then clarifies, stating that he feels the same way about her, acknowledging her strength. Her expression shifts as she looks up at him, seemingly about to explain herself. He asks why she is so determined to fight him, pointing out that there are many other people she could challenge. Priscilla pauses, her expression turning serious as she considers his question. She begins to tell her story, revealing that she was an orphan. A flashback shows she was abandoned in front of the wing dojo, where the elderly female instructor found and raised her. She explains that this granny developed her own unique martial art, the wing style, by combining techniques from many different disciplines. As an orphan child, Priscilla was nurtured to be her master's successor. However, her master was often mocked for being a woman, and as a result, no one wanted to become her disciple. Despite this, Priscilla recalls her training fondly. Though the regimen was difficult, she had a great time, and she felt that her granny seemed to enjoy it too. She recalls the words of her master, a woman she called Granny, from long ago. At the wing dojo, her master, Hijiri, told her that even women can clench their fists. In the memory, a much younger Priscilla stands before her master. Granny explains that people around her called her weak and useless, simply because she was a woman. Her master's face, etched with wrinkles but full of kindness, breaks into a smile as she reassures the young girl that it is okay to clench her fists. The words strike the young Priscilla, her eyes wide with surprise and dawning hope. Granny's voice continues, telling her that it is also okay to become the strongest. Returning to the present, Priscilla explains to Heiss that becoming the strongest was her granny's dream. However, her story takes a somber turn. She then reveals a painful truth. On the very day she signed up to become an adventurer, her granny passed away. The memory shifts to that moment, seeing her master sitting peacefully in her chair, gone from the world. Priscilla recalls thinking she looked just as she did when she first left home. The image of her younger self crying out in anguish flashes through her mind. It was because of this loss, she explains, that she wanted to prove it all. This, she explains, is why she wants to fight him. She must prove that her granny's martial arts are the strongest. Heiss summarizes her logic. By defeating the strong, she becomes the strongest. Priscilla simply confirms that this is her straightforward plan. His response, after hearing her entire heartfelt story, is a single blunt statement. I refuse. Priscilla is left utterly stunned by his rejection. She sighed, remarking that he was a tough one to crack. Heiss remained silent, his expression weary after her persistent attempts to change his mind. He internally processed her determination, realizing that her desire to be the strongest in her own way was just like Sasha's. Priscilla, meanwhile, chewed her thumb thoughtfully, wondering how she could get him to agree. Putting the discussion on hold, Heiss instructed her to finish her meal and get some sleep, as they had plenty to do the next day. Priscilla cheerfully agreed. 13 days into their expedition, the pair continued their descent. Priscilla marveled at the sheer size of the great labyrinth, commenting that there was still no sign of the boss. Heiss observed that the monsters were getting stronger the further down they went. She then casually wished that the boss would just come to them. Heiss, walking beside her, thought to himself that an adventurer should not be saying such things. Suddenly, her idle chatter stopped as her eyes widened, having spotted something in the distance. She immediately ran ahead, calling out that she had found the entrance to the next floor and wondering aloud what awaited them. Heiss yelled for her not to go off on her own. He caught up to her at the edge, where both stood frozen in shock. Before them lay not another dungeon corridor, but the sprawling, dilapidated ruins of a city from another world. This is, Priscilla stammered, voicing their shared standing before a desolate, ruined townscape. Heiss reflects on Bargain's words. He had been told this place was something unusual, but he never imagined it would be an entirely different world transplanted here. He wonders aloud if people from another world once lived inside this massive labyrinth. Priscilla, standing beside him, offers a different theory. Perhaps the entire town was summoned, just like his weapon. Heiss, however, seems to think that's not it. As they move through the rubble, Heiss' attention is caught by a shattered piece of metal on the ground. He calls out to Priscilla, pointing out that the fragments bear a resemblance to his own weapon. He looks at his own twin revolvers, confirming his suspicion. He concludes that his guns must also be from another world. Priscilla's eyes widen at the implication. She excitedly suggests that if that's the case, then defeating him would be equivalent to conquering another world. Her excitement fades as she surveys the destruction. She notes that everything is in ruins, speculating that a major fight must have occurred. Heiss agrees, adding that with so little information, they can only guess whether monsters or humans were responsible for the devastation. Spotting a path forward, Priscilla points toward a set of stone stairs leading down. She declares that they can descend there and rallies them to proceed with full force. Their descent leads them into a strange, cavernous area. The ground is unervingly pockmarked with numerous dark, deep holes. Priscilla wonders if they're now deep underground, while Heiss grimly questions the nature of this dungeon. Suddenly, they both freeze. Priscilla recoils, exclaiming about a horrible smell that has just permeated the air. Heiss, also sensing it, feels a familiar, unsettling vibe, the same he felt when he first received his Weapon Master blessing. He realizes this dungeon is filled with the unknown, but his thought is cut short by a sudden sense of peril. Without warning, the ceiling above them cracks and shatters. A cascade of rock and debris rains down, catching both Heiss and Priscilla completely by surprise as they look up in alarm. He grunts, bracing himself as the ground gives way completely, sending both him and Priscilla tumbling down into the darkness below amidst a cascade of rock and debris. They land in a vast, open cavern. Peering through the dust, Heiss spots a colossal shape in the distance and wonders if it is the source of the foul smell from before. From the ground erupts a monstrous, white worm, its segmented body towering over them. It lets out a piercing hiss, revealing a terrifying maw ringed with what look like interlocking gears. Heiss stares in shock, exclaiming that he's never seen anything like it in the guild's archives. Priscilla, though disgusted by its snake-like appearance, seems to have a flicker of recognition, murmuring that she thinks she's seen it before. He fires his weapon, but the shot deflects harmlessly off the creature's incredibly tough hide. As the bullet ricochets, Priscilla cries out, a crucial memory suddenly returning to her. Her mind flashes back to a lesson with her master, an elderly woman she calls Granny. The instructor had shown her a diagram of this very monster, explaining that while its skin is incredibly hard, its weak point is a core located inside its mouth. Priscilla admits to herself that she had doubted her granny's stories, but now sees they were true. Returning to the present, he asks what its weakness is. Priscilla, filled with pride for her teacher, explains that the core is inside its mouth. The revelation prompts a bewildered Heiss to ask just who her grandmother is. She declares she will stop the monster's movement to create an opening. As the massive worm lunges, Priscilla shouts for Heiss to take his chance. He takes aim with his large firearm as the beast's maw gapes wide, lining up a perfect shot on the glowing core deep within its throat. They stand together as rubble continues to fall. The wall behind where the monster once was is now riddled with strange, dark, spherical cavities. He stared at the defeated worm monster, its gear-like maw now still. Priscilla, however, seemed to find the outcome almost too easy, wondering aloud if a single shot was truly enough, even for a known weakness. As they stood before the strange cavities left in the cavern wall, Priscilla's thoughts turned to the future, excitedly anticipating a duel with Heiss. He, however, remained focused on their immediate goal, simply stating, "Let's go." His readiness was timely, as a new threat lunged from the shadows, a large, segmented golem. Priscilla immediately identified its weakness, shouting for Heiss to aim for its stomach. As he dodged, he realized this was a creature he had never encountered before. He struck its midsection, causing it to cry out in apparent pain. But the blow was not decisive. The creature began to rapidly reform itself. Priscilla yelled a warning that if they didn't destroy its core, it would just keep coming back. They launched a flurry of attacks, striking its horn, its leg, and its back, but the monster regenerated each part almost instantly. Their attacks on its limbs proved futile, revealing the creature's true nature. A bizarre, floating core with a single, central eye and writhing tentacles. Priscilla stared at it, beginning to recall a crucial detail about this specific foe. Just as she was about to reveal the key to victory, her expression changed. With a sheepish smile, she admitted that she had forgotten. Heiss could only shout in disbelief. He stared at her, dumbfounded, as the monstrous eye hovered before them. Priscilla, guessing, suggested that she couldn't think of anything else but its eye, though she dismissed the idea as being too obvious. Unsure, but out of options, she supposed they might as well try. Before they could act on her uncertain plan, the creature's core began to glow ominously, unleashing a massive surge of dark energy that filled the chamber. "This is the worst," Priscilla muttered, as both she and Heiss braced for the impact. Sometime later, after surviving the ordeal, they found a moment of respite. Steam filled the air as water sprayed from a showerhead Heiss had set up. Priscilla was amazed he had brought such an item, but he simply replied that it was to be expected. She reveled in the unexpected luxury, laughing as she explained her shock. She hadn't packed or prepared anything at all, despite knowing they were in one of the most difficult dungeons. Still within the makeshift shower, Priscilla explains that she tried her best to compensate for what she perceived as her own weakness, so she gave the fight her all. Heist listens from outside, silent and struck by her words. Priscilla continues, confused, telling him that while she may feel weak, he is incredibly strong, capable of almost anything, and a good cook besides. Her praise gives Heist pause, and Priscilla realizes she's piecing his story together. He explains that in his former party, he was the one who handled all the non-combat tasks. It was only after being kicked out that he was forced to discover his own latent abilities and grow stronger on his own. He reflects internally, wondering if he let his guard down around Priscilla because of her somewhat ditzy nature. A thought crosses his mind. If he were her teammate, he would never cast her out. At the same time, Priscilla feels a wave of nostalgia, saying the day's adventure felt like the early days when she first dreamed of being an adventurer. Her thought is cut short by a sudden yelp. The water has suddenly turned ice cold, and Priscilla shrieks in shock from the freezing spray. Outside the tent, Heist admits to himself that he had, indeed, let his guard down. After their brief recovery, they press onward, venturing into a new section of the dungeon. The environment shifts dramatically to a vast, oppressively hot and steamy passage. Now fully dressed, the pair trudges through the sweltering heat. Priscilla complains about the temperature, while Heist, equally affected, mutters in confusion about the bizarre nature of the dungeon. Their trek comes to an abrupt halt. Both adventurers stop, their attention captured by something strange in the distance. Heist lets out a questioning sound as they both stare forward. The source of their surprise is revealed. A massive, derelict amusement park stands impossibly before them. A giant Ferris wheel and the skeletal frame of a roller coaster rise out of the dungeon's strange terrain. Staring at the impossible structure, Priscilla wonders aloud if this is another building from a different world, similar to what they've encountered before. Her eyes scan the decaying park as she speculates whether the dungeon boss might be inside. A deafening roar echoes from within the amusement park, startling Priscilla. Heist, however, seems to confirm his suspicions. With a determined look, he concludes the boss must be there and declares that they're going in. He and Priscilla stepped into the heart of the bizarre dungeon floor, a derelict amusement park. A rusted Ferris wheel stood silent against the dark sky, and the skeletal remains of a carousel listed to one side, its painted horses frozen in a final, grim procession. As they ventured deeper, Heist remarked on the strangeness of the buildings. From the shadows, a smooth voice suddenly spoke, expressing surprise at finding humans in such a place. Priscilla and Heist stopped in their tracks, startled by the unexpected observer. Their attention snapped upwards to a figure perched atop a nearby roof. A slender, horned man in a suit offered them congratulations for making it so far, his tone dripping with condescending praise. Heist and Priscilla stared up, their expressions hardening with suspicion. Heist demanded to know the stranger's identity. With a theatrical flourish, the being corrected his own lack of manners before introducing himself. He was Roshanet, a member of the great demon race. The demon continued, offering a false apology. He declared that they were all going to serve as food for his adorable pets. The word demon echoed in Heist's mind as a sudden sense of dread washed over him. He could feel something immense approaching. His words were summons. The ground trembled and a monstrous form erupted from the darkness, a writhing, chaotic mass of serpentine necks and draconic heads, letting out a deafening, unified roar. The full, terrifying scale of the beast was revealed. Priscilla cried out in disgust at the slithery things, while Heist stared in disbelief, identifying the creature as an 8-headed dragon. Across from them, Roshanet watched with a smug, satisfied